Welcome, my little couch potatoes, to the comfiest courtroom on the internet. I'm your host, Llama, and it's time for dramatic testimony, overruled objections, and absolutely unqualified opinions. So grab your snuggiest blanket, some delicious snacks, and get ready to watch court with your internet besties. This is Couch Court with Llama. Hello, couch potatoes. Have you missed me? Because I've missed you. Oh my goodness. It's been so many days. It's been so many days. How many days has it been? 4, 5, whatever it is. I don't like it. I don't like it. Feels weird to kind of be back and not have done anything well, I did lots of things. I prepared the crap out of this show since the last time you saw me. But here we are. Good evening. Not very often we get to do couch court at night. Oh, good morning or after evening. What? I don't even know. I don't even know what time it is. What are we doing here? Hello, 80s music man. Hope you're doing well. Terry True Crime. Hey, babes. Lady in Gray. Hello. Good evening to you. I know I've missed everyone too. Oh my goodness, you guys. If there's one thing I'm known for, it's the ability to be flexible and change plans and not get upset when things don't work out. Just kidding. I'm not known for that at all. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate not being able to plan things. So this week, there wasn't going to be any couch court during the day because I was supposed to have my bathroom remodeled this week. We didn't ask for it to be, but they called last week and was like, yeah, hey, we're coming to do that. And we're like, oh, okay. So I waited around all day Monday. And then I realized, oh, it's the 7th, not the 8th. They'll be here between the 8th and the 10th, right? So that's today. So I waited around all day till about 2 p.m. and the contractor still wasn't here. So I called Elbow Feed. I'm like, have you heard from our contractor? And he was like, no. And then he was like, oh, wait, I got a voicemail. And then the voicemail was our contractor being like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it out today. I'm at another job right now, but I will be there first thing in the morning tomorrow. And I was like, okay, cool. Love that. 2 wasted days. Love that for me. So then about an hour ago, the contractor calls again and says, hey guys, so I was actually working on this other house's bathroom, and it turns out we have to gut the whole bathroom. So I'm not going to be able to be at your place until July 23rd. Isn't that fun and lovely? Loved it so much. Love that. I do not love that. I hate it. I hate the whole thing. So it turns out I'm just wasting this week. So that's great. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It gives me lots of time to work on other things because we have a lot of big things going on. So tonight we are going to continue our Crystal Rogers coverage. Tonight we're going to be covering the trial of Stephen Lawson, and we'll get into that in a second. But I just want to let you guys know what else we're doing for the rest of the week. Couch Court, we're probably not actually going to end up doing anything the rest of the week because by putting together this trial, I am behind on a lot of other show stuff. So I kind of got to get caught up in that. But tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do a members only. Me and the lovely Terry. We'll be doing members only tomorrow. Midday Missing will be tomorrow at 1 Eastern. Members only at 8 Eastern. Then Thursday, Terry and I will be here for True Crime and Wine Time at 8 Eastern as well, where we're going to be covering the story of Larry Rudolph. And you guys, there is going to be so many rants. I'll just forewarn you now. So make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss when we go live. Lady in Gray says, I hate dealing with contractors. Always late and over budget with no time and money. Girl, I'm fine. I'm so fine. Hello, Amos. Hi, babes. How you doing? All right. So a few things. We're going to be covering the case of Stephen Lawson, Kentucky versus Stephen Lawson. He was one of the 3 people arrested and charged with the death of Crystal Rogers. Okay. Now, yes, the second trial for the other 2 people, Brooks Hauken, his Stephen's son Joseph, just wrapped up today with some good old guilty verdicts. So I don't know if they're ever going to like air these trials for us to watch or whatever. But I will say I have worked on this trial of Stephen Lawson's for a week, probably very close to a week. And we'll play the fun game of how many sources did Llama need to do this whole trial? Because remember, no cameras, no electronics. All the reporters had to write everything down by hand. Chat, how many sources do you think I had to use to get what I could from this 4-day trial? Any takers? Any takers? I'll let you guys guess throughout the show. How about that? Just know it's a lot. And Brooks, House, and Joseph's trial was like 8 or 9 days. So, and same rules apply. So that's going to take me a little bit longer to put together. No, you can't get, I think you already know, don't you? Maybe not. If you don't know, then you can. 2 million sources. Well, that's about how many I read. How many I actually used to get information from, like that's the annoying thing about not streaming trials. Fine, okay, but then you're not allowing them to come in there with their computer and take notes. If they got to handwrite everything. I'd use so many sources because they all said different things. As we'll go along, you'll see. Like, I literally read every single article on Google to get all of this information. And there's still so many questions I have. I don't even know if they were like answered during the trial or not. I don't know. But this is why they should be more transparent about these things. Because now we're left with a bunch of speculation. And I got questions. There's so many questions. But we're probably only going to be here for maybe 2 hours tonight. I don't know. Let's see how many pages I got to read here. 36 pages. So that sounds pretty fair. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you too, Kelly B. Hope you're doing great. All right. So yes, we ended part 4. That was Thursday. That was a long day. I did a 9-hour stream covering all of the pretrial stuff from when Steve and Joseph Lawson and Brooks Houck were arrested. We did all the pretrial. Oh my God, it was so much. And it seemed like things were kind of weird. Things were a little different. Then no, you can't. That's not what a guess means, Amos. You can't be like, can I guess? I know. Those are two. It's not a guess if you know. You're silly. Oh yeah. I'm also apparently drinking a White Claw that I don't know how it ended up in our fridge, but it did. And it's black cherry and it's delicious. And I deserve a drink after today. It's been a day. All right. So let's get into this, shall we? Okay. Love that. Why? Oh, sorry. So StreamYard, I've been gone for a couple of days. And StreamYard has had these new updates everywhere. You know what? It didn't update the stupid little connection thing that's there every day. So I hope I'm coming in clear for all you guys. I just love it. All right. So let's get into it, guys. So these are the charges that, oh, you know what? You're not going to be able to see all the slides with the banner. Oh, okay. Well, you guys know we're on part 5. It's fine. We're not watching any videos tonight, so it's fine. So let's start first with the charges for Stephen Lawson, right? Because it's always important to know what the charges are when you're going to trial. We're listening to all the evidence, and does it fit these charges? Okay, so Stephen Lawson is charged with, first charge, conspiracy to commit murder. And what that means is it's a person having the intention of promoting or facilitating the commission of a crime and is guilty of criminal conspiracy when he, A, agrees with one or more persons that at least one of them will engage in conduct constituting that crime, or an attempt or solicitation to commit such a crime, or, because boy, does the law love ors, or agrees to aid one or more persons in the planning or commission of that crime, or an attempt or solicitation to commit such crime. Just want you guys to really think about that charge as we're going through this. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you all, what would your verdict be if you were on the jury? I don't know if all of us are going to agree, but that's okay because we're allowed to have different, that's how a jury is. It's made up of different people with different opinions. So at the end, we will all take a vote of what you guys think. So his second charge is tampering with physical evidence. And that means a person is guilty of tampering with physical evidence when, believing that an official proceeding is pending or may be instituted, he A, destroys, mutilates, conceals, removes, or alters physical evidence which he believes is about to be produced or used in the official proceeding with intent to impair its validity or availability in the official proceeding, or fabricates any physical evidence with intent that it be introduced in the official proceeding or offers any physical evidence knowing it to be fabricated or altered. So, excuse me. So that's what Steve is facing in this trial. Conspiracy to commit murder. And, oh, you know what? I put together this whole slideshow and I'm not even doing it right. Gosh, Llama, get it together. You act like you've been gone for a couple of days. All right, so let's get this trial underway. So day one, which was May 27th of this year, in case you're wondering. This is how recent this trial was. So before jury selection begins, Judge Charles Sims III hears a number of pretrial motions in a different courtroom on a different floor of the courthouse. Yeah, why? It's weird. It's weird. And I don't know why. Oh, hi, Juju Bean. Hello, welcome. Chloe's Albert Revenge. Hey. Queen Olive Ruth Ann. Well, hello. Look at all of my new friends. I love it. I love it. It's nice seeing you guys here, even in the evening. All right, so they're in a whole different courtroom, different floor of the courthouse. These motions have been sealed, meaning access is restricted and they are not publicly available to view. Yes, on the day of the trial. So that's interesting. So once the motions were heard, everyone involved in the hearing moved to the fourth floor of the courthouse, and that is where courtroom C is located. Now, it is the biggest courtroom in the building, and it'll be home to both trials in the Crystal Rogers case. Got a live feed of what? Of what? I have something at the end, but you let me know. Juju's got all the tea because she lives around there. So both Rogers family and Lawson's family have been promised 25 seats in the courtroom. That's not a lot, but okay. There's room for 108 people in the gallery, including 20 members of the media who have been given assigned seats in the first row. There will be roughly 38 seats for additional family, friends, media, and members of the public. And those seats were first come, first served. So now let's see. We've got the prosecution team. All right, we got Special Prosecutor Shane Young, who will be the lead attorney for the Commonwealth side of the courtroom. He is the Hardin County Commonwealth Attorney and was appointed as Special Prosecutor on this case. He's supported by a handful of other attorneys who work in his office. Teresa Young, I don't know if they're together or not. I don't know. But interesting. And Jim Lasuski. I think it's Lasuski. I don't know. That's what I'm calling. So then for the defense, we have Louisville attorney Darren Wolf and Lexington attorney Zach Buckler. And they'll be representing Stephen Lawson on the other side of the courtroom. Now, the two attorneys are private defense attorneys who are hired as contractors by the Department of Public Advocacy in August of 2024. Remember, they have literally only been on this case for like 8 months by the time it goes to trial. Let's see. All right. So Steve Lawson is wearing a navy blue button-down shirt and black glasses, in case you all were wondering. And members of Team Crystal are also present in the courtroom with Rogers' family. The group has helped search for Rogers every weekend with her late father, Tommy Ballard, and was leading search efforts. Many people are wearing pink, a signature color of Crystal's case. Oh, I should have worn pink. I didn't think about it. Where was I? Okay. So then Brian Butler, who is Brooke's house attorney, is also present in the courtroom, dressed down in a polo and jeans to blend in, but obviously observing for Brooke's trial that would be a few weeks later. And we also have former Nelson County Detective John Snow is also in the courtroom, and he led the police investigation prior to the FBI's takeover in 2020. So they get back into the courtroom and then they have some public pretrial hearings. Again, why these are separate, I don't understand. I don't understand this court in anything they do. All right. So once everyone is settled in the courtroom, the morning began with a pretrial hearing. Lawson's defense team asked for a continuance to delay the trial yet again. Attorney Darren Wolf argued his defense team has not had enough time to review all the discovery in this case, referencing more than 400,000 written documents and hundreds of video and audio interviews. That is an insane amount of discovery. And they've only been on this case since August of last year. I think that's crazy. They are married? Sorry, I'm having a hard time watching chat and reading at the same time. Oh, okay. So we now know Shane Young and Teresa Young are married. Interesting. No, that's Shane. Is his first name Patrick? I don't know. Anyway, I must not get too distracted. I'm going to do my best. All right. So Wolf told Judge Sims, we do not feel adequately prepared. And as we stand, we have not been able to review everything. Fair points. He also said that there are mentions of individuals like Nick Houck and Jason Ellis in the discovery, calling them tangential issues. Quote, we have not been able to review anything about the Jason Ellis case, Wolf said. We haven't been able to ask. That's interesting, right? I want to know what all this stuff they have for Jason Ellis. Interesting. So Special Prosecutor Shane Young said that those issues are not substantive in discovery. Okay. Then the judge says, quote, nobody has been able to solve Jason Ellis's death, and we don't think we're going to solve it at this trial, Judge Sims replied. Sims responded that while the discovery is voluminous, much of it is completely irrelevant to Steve Lawson, and the defense had sufficient time to review what mattered in the case against him. I'm sorry. How does the judge know that 400,000 written documents and audio and video interviews is completely irrelevant? How can you make that assertion? Did you look at all of this stuff, Judge? No, you didn't, because when they tried, remember when Lavitt tried to hand him a thumb drive of all of Steve's interviews, and he was like, I don't have time for this. I got a job with other cases. But now you're saying, no, it's completely irrelevant. Too bad. Sorry, you lose. That's kind of, I don't like that. But regardless, Lawson's attorneys said they were prepared to move forward. Quote, we're going on 10 years of investigation. To think we could be prepared, Wolf said, shaking his head, but we're marching on. We're in our suit and tie. And of course, their motion for a continuance was denied. I don't know. So then Judge Sims then heard arguments for and against allowing a single media-operated pool camera, which was also denied. He said he's already exhausted with requests, and the trial has not even started. He brought up the possibility that witnesses in Steve Lawson's trial could watch other witnesses testify if footage from the case was live streamed, and that the primary focus is for a fair trial. He also said he believes that cameras will create a circus-like atmosphere with the trial and wants himself and the jury to just be able to focus and have a fair trial with no distractions. I call BS, but whatever. With that, the trial of Stephen Lawson moves forward without any outside use of camera and audio recorders, and reporters may only take handwritten notes, which is why we're here tonight doing this. And I just want to say this was a huge inconvenience, and I strongly disagree with this judge, but I'm not a judge, so whatever. All right, so the court immediately moved into jury selection. Members of the media and Rogers' family watched jury selection from a separate courtroom on a closed circuit TV feed. Now, Judge Sims asked each potential juror to raise their hand and swear an oath to tell the truth. He said the jury must make their own decision in Lawson's case solely on the evidence they hear during trial. He goes on to say, quote, "I know you're probably thinking, this guy is not from here. I've never seen him before. You're right. We had to move this case here because of some pre-trial publicity." Why would you say that? Why would you say, first of all, sir, Judge, Your Honor, okay, I know you have a very important title, and I appreciate that. Do any of you guys know your local judges that you would see them and be like, "Oh, no, you don't," unless you're in the court system, either working for it or a defendant. You don't know who the hell the judges are. They wouldn't even know, probably, had you not said something. And then you tell them, "Oh, we had to move the case because there's a lot of pretrial publicity," which is then saying, "Oh, this case is going to have a lot of weight." Why would you say that? Why would you say that? I don't understand. But okay, sir. Okay. So then Steve, oh, hey, Kathy. Hi, hope you're doing great. So then Stephen Lawson was asked to stand before the jury, with Judge Sims asking if any of them knew him, his attorneys, or former Nelson County Detective John Snow. They all said no. Prosecutor Shane Young read a list of 13 people who are potential witnesses for the prosecution. That's right, 13, that's it. And attorney Darren Wolf named 6 potential defense witnesses to prospective jurors to see if anyone had any relation to or knew of any of them. This is very interesting, you guys. So at least 4 potential jurors have already been dismissed for various reasons, including one who said he had a connection to one of the witnesses expected to testify for the defense. A continuous pool of 37 potential jurors were maintained for 2 hours as they were questioned from Judge Sims, the prosecutor Shane Young, and finally from Lawson's attorneys. Judge Sims asked potential jurors about their familiarity with the case, first asking those with no familiarity to raise their hands after he gave a handful of broad details about the allegations. Potential jurors now won't be dismissed for simply knowing about the case. That's with every case. A juror who is familiar with Roger's story may sit on the jury as long as they confirm they do not have any bias and agree to make a final judgment based only off of the evidence presented in court. So, okay. Jurors who have heard of the case but were not familiar with any details were also questioned, as were potential jurors who were familiar with details of the case to see whether or not they had formed an opinion. So 10 jurors said they didn't know anything about Crystal Rogers' case, while another 10 said they did know about the case, but had not formed an opinion about the case. So at least 7 people raised their hand, saying they knew about the case and had formulated an opinion. The judge called another 7 potential jurors into the courtroom because those all went out the door. So about 24 prospective jurors were dismissed during questioning about their familiarity with the case. Now, they also asked many questions about their religious views, any preconceived opinions, law enforcement, and other possible biases. Prosecutor Shane Young questioned the potential jurors, saying they are not here to decide whether Crystal Rogers was murdered and who committed that murder. Quote, "We are here to decide if there was a conspiracy We are here to decide if Steve Lawson agreed to move Crystal Rogers' car and if he knew there was a plan to kill her. Steve Lawson's attorney, Darren Wolf, then questioned the potential jurors. Quote, is everybody positive that they haven't heard anything about this case and has made them form an opinion? He asked, to which no one raised their hands. Wolf asked jurors if they had any connection to law enforcement and to determine if they can be a fair juror, focusing on whether those with connections can look past their bias in the case. Absolutely, one juror responded. I believe in the legal system and its importance. Another potential juror, a woman whose son and husband have connections to the case, said, she can form my own opinion, which I do love. By the afternoon, a jury had been seated. The jury is composed of 5 men and 10 women. 3 of the jurors are Black, while the others are white. 3 will serve as alternates in case one of the 12 jurors must be replaced. Now, jurors were told that they are allowed to take notes during the trial, but can't take them outside the courtroom. They are also allowed to ask questions. They were also instructed to not Google anything about the case. Now, after the jurors were seated, the court broke for lunch. So, and that is how they started out with that day. I agree, Chloe's revenge. The camera should see everything. Everything. They'd be dressed in characters like contestants on Missing. I mean, it's just when you don't do stuff like this, and it's a case like this where there really does need to be a lot of transparency, in my opinion. How are you not confident enough that everything that's going on is by the book? Like, wouldn't that give more people faith in their justice system if they could see it, right? Because you can't just walk into this trial. They barely had any seats. It really fires me up about not having cameras there. You're a ladybug. You're the form. Okay, I like your court already. I like it. All right, so opening statements. Here we go. Buckle up, you guys. So, let me take a drink here. All right. So, Special Prosecutor Shane Young said there was a strained relationship between Crystal Rogers and Brooks Houck, and that the two were not on good terms before she disappeared, hinting at a motive. He then walked jurors through a presentation outlining the timeline and evidence in the case. Young said they plan to show cell phone records and GPS tracking of Steve Lawson's phone to prove that Steve played a role in covering up Crystal Rogers' death and that Steve was near Rogers' car when it was abandoned along the Bluegrass Parkway. Quote, Lawson advises he never left his house on July 3rd. He said he was home drinking, Young said, adding that Lawson's story has changed in the last decade. Young also spoke about a 13-second phone call Lawson had with Rogers' ex-boyfriend, Brooks, and that after that call, Steve then drove to mile marker 14 of the Bluegrass Parkway, which is exactly where Crystal's car was. Quote, Crystal took a fatal ride to the farm. After 9 p.m., Crystal is never heard from again. Well, that's some new information because we have gotten no information about any really of the timeline. So for the defense's opening statement, Steve Lawson's attorney, Darren Wolf, acknowledged this is a complicated case for the jury to decide. Quote, in a way, it's quite simple. In a way, it's extremely convoluted. And, well, we'll say from reading all of these articles, the articles themselves were very convoluted. It was a mess. He also admitted to the jury that his client was guilty. That's right. Let me start that over again. He also admitted to the jury that his client was guilty of tampering with physical evidence. saying that Steve Lawson had adjusted the driver's seat in Crystal Rogers' vehicle while helping his son, Joseph, who had driven it until getting a flat tire. That's quite a thing to be like, by the way, my client, we're already going to say he's guilty of the second charge. But Wolf pushed back hard against the conspiracy to commit murder charge, and that Steve Lawson is not guilty of that. Quote, this is the Commonwealth trying until after 10 years of investigation to bring out a series of individuals who are all going to attempt to be heroes. They want to go down in history as the people who have solved the greatest mystery in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Fair point. He also argues that prosecutors overreached and was only charged with complicity to commit murder after he didn't say what the Commonwealth wanted to hear, and that they have created a narrative due to the high-profile nature of Crystal Rogers' case. Wolf pointed out that 4 grand juries were impaneled before the state could indict Steve Lawson on a conspiracy to commit murder charge, and emphasized that the investigation remains open because Crystal has never been found. 4 grand juries to indict someone. That is saying something. All right, we're gonna do our best to be devil's advocate here, but that is a lot of grand juries to indict somebody. A lot. He goes on to say, guess what's not over? The investigation. You better darn make sure you've completed your investigation. There are more unanswered questions than answered questions, Wolf said, and he is not wrong about that. The jury appeared attentive during the opening statement, with some taking notes. I'll tell you, from this trial, I have so many more questions, and we'll get to them. All right. So first on the stand for Commonwealth's case in chief is, of course, Sherry Ballard, Crystal Rogers' mother. It was a very raw, emotional moment as she took the stand. She was gripping a wet tissue to dab her eyes, and it took her several moments before she could tell the jury her name between audible sobs. I couldn't imagine. She'd been waiting for this for 10 years. It must not have felt real for her. I couldn't imagine. Once composed, she described how Crystal and Brooks began dating around 2010 to 2011. And it had started off well. They met when Crystal rented a house from Brooks Hauk, who owned a network of rental properties. They started dating and moved in together when Rogers was about 5 months pregnant with their child. She started working for Brooks, helping him manage his properties. By the time of Rogers' disappearance, though, Ballard said the relationship was not good, and that Brooks had other girlfriends that Crystal knew about. I wonder who I wonder who the girlfriend is. Do you think it's that other Crystal? Crystal Maupin? I don't know. Sherry said Crystal found out that Brooks had another girlfriend and wasn't happy about it. She also recalled strange incidences, like how replacing ammunition in one of Crystal's guns, which kicked back so hard it left her bruised during a shooting outing. Interesting. She recalled the panic she felt as everyone tried to call Crystal and could never reach her. On the way to the police station to report Crystal missing, Sherry saw Brooks at a gas station with him and Crystal's son. A gas station security camera actually captured their interaction. Sherry asked him if he had seen Crystal, and Brooks said she'd gotten into a tizzy with him earlier. I just love that she used the word tizzy. I love that. Quote, I knew the instant I saw the baby in there that something was wrong. She never went anywhere without that baby. I told him I'm going to file a missing persons report, and he looked at me like I was talking about a person off the street. He said, I think that's what you should do. she said, adding that he didn't go with her to the sheriff's office. I mean, that is not surprising. And the defense did not cross Sherry Ballard, which is of no surprise. I wouldn't expect them to. And where's the other girlfriend? Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to do like a whole tea because I don't know all the tea. Okay, where were we? Okay, so that was their first witness of the day. Our next one is Detective John Snow. He's the state's second witness, and he was the lead investigator in the early days of the Rogers case until he retired. Now, Detective Snow talked about how Crystal Rogers' car was found abandoned with the engine running and with a flat tire on the Bluegrass Parkway between Bardstown and Elizabethtown. He said many of her belongings were still in the car, including her phone, which had been turned off. Detective Snow said that Brooks Houck told him the night Crystal disappeared, they were at the family farm walking around the cow pasture, because that is just so fun to do. So fun to do. Investigators pulled surveillance video from more than a dozen locations to track how the two were able to get to the farm. He said Houck's truck made it to the farm around 7 p.m. and it left there around midnight. Excuse me. Guys, there's so many weird things. You'll see. You'll see. I don't know why people did the things that they did, but do we ever, really? So police searched Houck's truck in the family farm for evidence on July 7th, 2015, but found nothing. But the next day, cell phone records revealed that Steve Lawson and Brooks Houck shared a 13-second phone call at 12:07 a.m. on July 4th, the night that Crystal disappeared. During a police interview on July 8th, 2015, that we all watched together, Brooks Houck called Steve Lawson to ask why they spoke that night. And Detective Snow said the call was unusual and agreed it was a weird phone call. We already watched it all together as a group. If this is the first one you're listening to, you can find all these interrogations on our YouTube channel in all of my previous days where I covered this from the very beginning 10 years ago. So Mr. Houck asked him about work, and Mr. Lawson immediately started talking about rental houses, he said. It was so bizarre. Prosecutor Steve Young handed out headphones to the jurors so they could go listen to Houck's police interview, where he was asked about the call. Detective Snow also walked jurors through an earlier interview he conducted with Steve Lawson, footage of which was played in court, along with nearly 20 minutes of Lawson's grand jury testimony, which we don't have, but we kind of watched that on Thursday in one of those hearings that we watched together. They did play clips of it. So the prosecutor, Shane Young, accused Steve of refusing to speak with detectives about Crystal Rogers' disappearance and wouldn't hand over his phone at first. He was eventually pulled over while driving in August 2015, and officers took his phone into evidence. So that's interesting. Where was it? Okay. Steve Lawson would be interviewed that same month, to which he said he couldn't recall the phone call. A 14-minute portion of that interview was also played in court. Now, Prosecutor Young also noted that Steve gave conflicting explanations for the call, at times saying he was asked about properties, and other times saying he didn't remember the call at all. He did allegedly admit that he had a habit of calling people, including his mother, late at night while drinking. Oh, those people are the worst. I've known two of them. And it's like once they call at a certain time, you're like, I'm not answering that because you know that they're drunk as shit. When Detective Snow asked Steve if he thought Rogers was dead, Lawson said yes, which I don't think is that weird, okay? I mean, I think that all the time when people go missing. Like, if this wasn't a person I think that was just like a fair guess, but okay. Detective Snow talked about how the sheriff's office was inundated with more than 1,000 tips the first week of Roger's disappearance. That's wild. Quote, there has been no indication of her existence after the night in July of 2015, Detective Snow said. There was no credible information that she ever made it home. And so with that, the court adjourns for the day. That was day 1. Okay. Sorry, my nose is itchy. All right, so day 2, May 28th, 2025. We got Detective John Snow back on the stand for what I think is cross. Another thing I want to say 2 things about this coverage here. 1, I did the best I could. Okay. Maybe they'll release the footage of this trial and everything I said is like out of order. Could be. Some of the things could be the prosecution asked and instead it was a defense. I don't know. I did the best I could. So all you need to know is that with that witness, this is the information that came out. I tried to break it up between direct and cross and redirect, and I did my best. But I'm just saying, don't hold me to it. If this trial comes out and they're like, but Llama, they brought up this thing first. I'm like, okay, I did my best. Okay. All right. So apparently this is cross-examination when they come back for day 2. And Jon Snow is still on the witness, and he's being cross-examined by Zach Buckler, the younger of the 2 attorneys. So defense attorney Buckler questioned Detective Snow about the evidence recovered from Roger's car when police found it abandoned on the side of the Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown in 2015 with her keys, phone, and purse inside. Detective Snow said that Roger's personal belongings were the only physical evidence of interest recovered from the car, but that the circumstances surrounding the findings were amiss. I included that for you, Amos. Defense attorney Buckler questioned him on if evidence recovered from Roger's car was properly handled and tested. He said Roger's vehicle was given back to her family in August 2015, just 2 months after it had been found. Then in 2017, 2 years later, the Oxygen Network hired someone to process the vehicle and found numerous items in the car, including a hairbrush belonging to Rogers. Detective Snow said he was unaware of that. I don't understand. 1, this is a small town. You know about this docu-series because you freaking questioned everybody about it, but you were unaware that they found this hairbrush. What? Get out of here. Buckler then asked if someone else could have used that hairbrush, including a possible suspect. Detective Snow replied, it's possible, and I didn't have that piece of evidence. I will say I do feel like attorney Buckler is stretching very hard with that. Like, but the person could have brushed their hair. Like, what? Who's brushing their hair with somebody's hairbrush when they have their car? Come on, get out of here with that. Could they have processed the car better? Probably. But that's just silly. That's not working for me there. Buckler then asked him about the hairs that were collected by Nelson County investigators from tape lifts and sent to the Kentucky State Police for further analysis, which did not take place. That's right, they did not test them. When asked why the hairs were not tested, Detective Snow replied, quote, if you risk destroying the evidence, you have to approach that cautiously. If you have no DNA to compare it to, you risk destroying evidence for no reason. Which I don't understand that, because don't they just like keep that DNA on file, like, and then use that to match? Okay. Oh, that's okay. You're forgiven, Jujubee. Thank you for hitting the like button, and everyone else, if you haven't yet, be like Jujubee and hit that like button. Thanks. So, in a 2015 recorded interview with Steve, Detective Snow could be heard asking if Steve believed Rogers was dead. Buckler argued that because Detective Snow suggested it first, Steve could have simply been agreeing with the detective, not attesting that he knew firsthand that she was deceased. I mean, yeah. Quote, he was affirming what we already thought, Snow responded. I don't think it was suspicious. I think he knew she was dead. Didn't they just say that he was interviewed in August? Like a good month and a half after Crystal disappeared. She's not found anywhere. I think reasonably, most people would conclude she's probably deceased at that point. But okay, I don't think it's that weird. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd be like, yeah, probably. Buckler emphasized that Steve was cooperative throughout the investigation and maintained there is no evidence to support the charge of conspiracy to commit murder. Defense attorney Buckler also brought up the possibility of alternate suspects or co-conspirators that have yet to be charged. Oh, I think we might know where this is going. Detective Snow testified that Nick Houck, brother of defendant Brooks Houck, and their mother, Rosemary Houck, remain under active investigation. This was probably the day's most significant revelation because even though Nick and Rosemary Houck's names have surfaced before, today marked the first time they've been so pointedly implicated, especially in open court. Detective Snow also said that they were on authorities' radar as being involved in Crystal Rogers' disappearance. So during redirect, I think, I don't know, I think it was during redirect, Detective Snow said his investigation determined that one of Crystal's daughters saw her leave home with Brooks on July 3rd, 2015, that they went to Houck's family farm and Crystal did not return home. Put a pin in that because that goes into a long list of questions that I have and you're probably going to have as well. Asked by prosecutors why he focused his efforts on that phone call, Snow said it was because it happened so soon after Rogers was last seen alive. That's fair. In regards to potential other suspects or co-conspirators, such as Nick and Rosemary Houck, who have not been charged, Prosecutor Young asked whether the possibility of there being additional suspects changed Detective Snow's views on Steve Lawson's alleged involvement. Detective Snow responded, not in any way. So, in case you're wondering, hey, Llama, how good was all the notes taken out of court? Here's our next witness for the Commonwealth, Detective Jamie Brooks. And what you're reading is all I found about his testimony. Yep, that's it, right there on that slide. Next on the stand is Detective Jamie Brooks, who assisted Detective John Snow by extracting data from Lawson's phone. And he was not cross-examined. So that was it. Between all the ridiculous number of sources I had to use, that is all the information I found about Detective Jamie Brooks. So the next person on for the Commonwealth, witness number 4, is Lauren Hardin. Maybe Bell is her last name. I don't know. Some of the articles said Hardin Bell, some just said Hardin. So we just put it in parentheses with a question mark. But anyway, so Lauren Hardin Bell, we're just going to call her Lauren. She is Steve Lawson's stepdaughter to his late wife, Tammy Lawson. So Steve Lawson at one point had claimed that the 13-second phone call that he had with Brooks Houck at 12:07 a.m. on July 4th, 2015, was asking about renting Lauren an apartment. Lauren testified that her only sister was living in Cincinnati, Ohio at the time and was not moving to the area. She also said that at the time in 2015, she was living next door to Steve Lawson and was in the process of being evicted from a property owned by Brooks Houck and managed by Crystal Rogers. She testified that she had not asked Steve to look for apartments for herself and that she had both Brooks and Crystal's numbers and could have called them herself. All right, those are pretty fair. Fair statements there. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. So on cross-examination, defense attorney Darren Wolf really pressed her heavy drug use during 2015, which may have clouded her memory. Just like, a bit of a spoiler, that's a trend for a lot of the witnesses. Isn't that fun? So Wolf argued that Steve's calls made sense given her evictions and that it would not be unusual for Steve to seek help for his stepdaughter in finding another place to rent. And she agreed. She was like, actually, that's not that unusual. He could have done that. I just didn't ask him to. Wolf also added that the first time she spoke of this to investigators was in 2020, 5 years after Crystal Rogers' disappearance. So that's kind of interesting, right? Saying, well, I didn't ask him. Would you have known? Because I can tell you, it seems like a lot of these witnesses have a lot of serious substance abuse issues in the past. And that's hard for credibility. That's very hard. Not saying, that what they're saying isn't true. I'm just saying it really knocks credibility out the window sometimes. Excuse me. So next up, you guys, this one's a doozy. Next up is Elizabeth Chesser, okay? Buckle up, you guys. So she is the mother of Joseph Lawson's baby, okay? And her mother, not Tammy, I think it's Rebecca, but I don't know, but not Tammy, was also married to Steve Lawson. Yes, you did hear correctly. The step-siblings had a baby together. Was this before or after the marriage between their parents? I don't know. Okay, but it's still kind of weird. Like, no matter which way you look at it. All right. It's very okay. Now, throughout her testimony, Elizabeth and Steve would exchange glares as Steve shook his head. Elizabeth said Steve and her mother got together in late 2017, just months after Tammy Lawson died. She said that Steve told her in September 2017 that he was at one point planning to leave his ex-wife. Quote, he was leaving Tammy because she knew he committed murder. Oh. Now, for context, Tammy has since died. And Steve had told investigators that Tammy, was not on the Bluegrass Parkway when Roger's car was dumped. But cell phone records indicate otherwise. Oh, yes. So far, they're saying Stephen Lawson, or let's start, Brooks House, Stephen Lawson, Joseph Lawson. Those are the only three charged so far. Had something to do with this. Nick and Rosemary Houck, they've dropped saying that they're, potential suspects or co-conspirators. And then dead Tammy Lawson apparently is in on this gig too. Like, oh, okay. It's kind of all right. So Elizabeth then testified about a chilling moment she and her mother shared while watching a 2018 true crime documentary produced by the Oxygen Network. You guys, when I did the big, coverage of everything that happened before this, I had no idea that the Oxygen docuseries was going to be mentioned this much in trial. It's wild to me, but here we are. So the series included footage of Brooks Houck's interview with Detective Snow, during which Steve was heard on the phone call with Houck. Elizabeth said they rewound the program to listen to several times and that Steve allegedly affirmed it was him in the recording, which I thought we all knew. Maybe it's been a while, but I feel like it was said that it was Steve Lawson. I didn't think this was some mystery, but okay. So then Elizabeth identified it as Steve's voice and testified that Steve eventually told her mother that he left his ex-wife because she knew he had committed murder. But if there's no evidence, no case, she claimed, he said. And so at this point, Steve's attorneys object. Okay, they're just objecting all over the place. All right, prompting a brief court recess. Okay, so they go to recess. All right. So Elizabeth gets back on the stand and she's asked if she discussed the case with any witnesses, right? Because they're all under sequestration, because that's how trials work. And she said that she had spoken to Sherry Ballard in the bathroom during that court recess, in the middle of her testimony, which prompted another objection from the defense because, girl, what, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Oh, I didn't even keep up with my slides. Oh, I thought, okay. Okay, there we go. So after the discussion at the bench, Chester was asked about the conversation she had just had with Sherry Ballard during the recess. Quote, "I pray that this brings you peace, but I doubt it will," Chester said she told Sherry Ballard. Elizabeth was told by Judge Sims not to talk to any family members. Oh, man, how that didn't equal a mistrial right there. Ooh, questionable. All right, so that was her direct. Now, for cross, defense attorney Darren Wolf pressed Elizabeth about her drug use and her memory in 2017 and whether she'd spoken to prosecutors about her testimony prior to trial. Elizabeth testified that she was drying out from addiction and pregnant at the time she was living with her mother and claimed to be sober at the time of the alleged remark. In regards to her memory, she said, "There's nothing you'll forget." Wolf called Elizabeth's testimony a bombshell after claiming Steve wanted to leave his late wife, Tammy, because she had murder on him and was going to tell. Elizabeth doubled down that Steve admitted to her that he committed murder, but said she didn't know this was regarding Crystal Rogers until she heard his voice in that docuseries. Okay. Wolf brought up her watching the documentary and how that was around the time of the alleged remarks made by Steve. However, Elizabeth maintained that the alleged statement from Steve was her own independent recollection. Wolf asked her why she hadn't reported the alleged confession sooner, and Elizabeth said she eventually disclosed it to the FBI, but feared for her life. She said Joseph Lawson told her, "I would be next if I did anything." Okay, and we'll get to my thoughts on this witness here in a second, but that's important to note. Defense attorney Wolf confronted her about her recent conversation with Sherry Ballard during an earlier break. And Elizabeth said that Sherry thanked her and that she responded that, "I hope this brings you peace, and I don't know if it will." Wolf used that to try and say that she was only testifying because of her loyalty to Sherry. Elizabeth said, "No, it's just the right thing to do." She testified that she stays in touch with Joseph Lawson, who is in jail and about to be on trial with Brooks Howe. She said that Joseph had shared details about the case with her, further shaping her understanding of their involvement. Now, during redirect, Special Prosecutor Shane Young asked Elizabeth if she wanted to be there testifying that day. And Elizabeth said no, as she broke down in sobs. He then asked her if she feared anyone in the courtroom, and she quietly replied, quote, "I'm afraid someone is going to kill my children," just before a defense objection cut her off from elaborating further. That's definitely objectionable. Now, the jury questions. That's right. For the first time in this trial, the jury has some questions. They could be seen taking many notes throughout Elizabeth's testimony, and the jurors had several questions for Elizabeth, though the judge told them that some were not allowed. And boy, do I want to know what those questions were. Many were surrounding her relationship with her mom. Now, the jury asked Elizabeth the exact phrasing of what Lawson told her. Quote, "She knew I had committed murder and was going to tell on me, so I was leaving her," Elizabeth recalled. So let's just pause here in this trial because I have some thoughts about Elizabeth's testimony. Okay. I don't really like that a lot of this had to do with her watching the docuseries. This was 7 years ago. All right. We know people's memories do not get better with time unless you're from Canton, Massachusetts. And apparently that's how memory works there. It only gets better. But you're also could be influenced by the buzz in the town. You're watching this documentary. I'm pretty sure it said it was Stephen Lawson, because when Stephen Lawson got arrested, me and Amos were talking about it. And we were like, oh, hey, isn't that the guy from the video? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong and I'm creating a false memory. Could be. But I don't know if that really does that for me. Saying that, oh, that's why he left his wife because she had murder on it. Okay. So she's saying that Steve left his ex-wife because she knew that he committed murder. Then why would you leave your ex-wife who says they know you committed murder? Wouldn't you murder them? You wouldn't want another witness going around, and you're leaving her, which means you're going to piss her off. And they got murder on you? That sounds, I don't know how I feel about that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense to me how that would happen. Now, when she does say that she's scared, that Joseph had told her, quote, "I would be next if I said anything," I do believe that, because in our earlier coverage, when Joseph got arrested, we learned about the very violent, his violent history with the women in his life. And I'm probably betting that Elizabeth was one of those 5 women that were talked about. He was an abuser. He was not a good person. So, right? If they have murder on you, and they think Tammy was complicit in the murder, the investigators too. So I don't know. I don't particularly care for Elizabeth's testimony. It doesn't do much for me. I'm not saying she's lying, but it doesn't mean anything. It's all hearsay, really. So I don't know about that. And then going to talk to Sherry in the bathroom. Are you serious? Why would you do that? It does not look good, because Sherry, as we know, was the first witness. Therefore, you are not to talk to another witness. But anyway, so that was Elizabeth, and those are my thoughts on her coverage there. Yeah, memories do not get better over time, and they are influenced by every person and statement you come into contact with. Looking at you, Deborah. Amos said, he said his name in the interrogation video. We watched it, but I do not believe that was in the documentary. Maybe not. I don't know. Because see, when we watched the documentary, we then went and watched the full interrogation videos of Steve and Brooks, like the same day or the next day or something like that. So maybe it wasn't in the document. I don't know. But I was just like, okay. It is so hard to tell since we are not hearing and seeing it ourselves. I agree. See? Yes, this reporting is also just hearsay. Exactly. Exactly. Lady in Gray says there's a lot of credibility issues in the testimony in the case. Credibility issues, but also we're talking, 7 to 10 year memories. Like it's just, ugh, ugh, it's a lot. Okay. So next is Stacy Cranmere or Crammer. I don't know. Again, too many of the sources have had one name, have had the other. So we're just gonna call her Stacy. I'm going with everybody's first names because I got very tired of this. So the Commonwealth calls Stacy, who's the sixth witness to the stand. She worked on Brooks' houses, building decks and installing insulation for him. So she allegedly witnessed Steve Lawson riding around with Brooks' house in Brooks' truck. I'm sorry for being so burpy. It just won't stop coming. Sorry, all the bubbles. Busy lifting drink over here. All right, so she saw the two riding around in Brooks' house truck. She said that it was odd because Brooks didn't ride with employees. This was before Crystal's disappearance, by the way. Stacy said that Steve made comments to her that he had to take care of this girl with 5 kids. She asked Steve if by take care of, he meant putting the woman in rehab, to which Steve allegedly replied, I wish that was the case. She later said that this bit of information was extracted from Steve after several questions from her, and that she thought Steve's responses were full of bull. Now, in the week of Roger's disappearance, Stacy called the police to report the interaction. So, all right, I do find Stacy a little bit more credible because she called them to report the incident, but she didn't feel like she was heard. One of Detective Snow's sticky notes, though, were entered into evidence, and it was a reminder to return Stacy's call. Her statement wouldn't be taken until October 2015. So 3 months later, before there's an official statement from Stacy, but we do know that she did try to call ahead of time to talk about this. So, all right, Stacy, you're working out for me over here. Okay. When she did finally make her written statement, it said it was about a girl on meth with kids involved. It's unknown if Crystal was a drug user, but it has been denied by her family and Brooks Houck himself. No one that I know of anywhere has ever said Crystal was on drugs in any way, shape, or form, and she didn't seem to be. So kind of weird that she would write on meth, though, in her written statement. So when asked why she was testifying, she said, quote, I hope someone would do it for me. I'm a mother of 4. Now, on cross-examination, defense attorney Darren Wolf asked her why it took her 4 months to come forward. She said she was scared by all the rumors at first, but eventually went in and gave her statement in October 2015. Stacy acknowledged that her statement included meth, but she said the drug only came up as part of a longer conversation after she pressed him for details about what he meant by taking care of the woman. The subject of Crystal Rogers' drug use, Wolf asked Kramer if she had any idea if Crystal was on meth. Stacy said she didn't think so and believed that meth was an excuse to take care of this girl. After being asked about talking to prosecutors and watching documentaries about the disappearance, she became very defensive, though. Quote, they have something to do with it, all of them, Stacy said of Brooks Houck and the Lawsons. She was like, everybody up in here did this. Now, I'll say for me personally, I don't know how any of you feel, but I do find Stacy to be credible. But she literally told us nothing. Like, okay, so they're riding around in a truck. Doesn't mean anything. Oh, he said, oh, I got to take care of this girl or whatever. That also doesn't mean anything. It wasn't very specific. The only thing in common was that there were 5 kids. And I don't know. Her testimony doesn't do a lot for me, though I do find her to be fairly credible. So, okay. Next up is Charlie Girdley. So Charlie Girdley was the final witness before the lunch break. That's right, guys. They went through all, what is this, fifth witness on day 2, and it's not even lunchtime yet. They're just powering through all of these witnesses. All right, so he also worked for Brooks Haug and knew Steve and Joseph Lawson. Charlie said it was brought back to him that Steve was told, quote, Brooks wants to get rid of this old lady, and that Steve replied, I'm not your man. You got the wrong guy. Ask Charlie. Charlie said he laughed it off. It's like, what? Okay. So then Charlie goes and describes hanging out with both Steve and Joseph Lawson after work on July 3rd, drinking at a local bar and a pre-party. He said that he and Joseph left the bar to go get some dope. Then they paid a visit to Brooks' house, and Charlie picked up a check, and while they were there, Brooks gave Joseph the keys to Roger's car because he was told that Joseph was going to perform some maintenance work on the car, and then Charlie went back to the bar. Okay. So later that night, when he went to pick up Steve at the Thompson Hill Road home, he recalled seeing Crystal's car there. So Charlie goes back to this house that Steve is at, and Crystal's car is there. Now remember, when they go to pay Brooks a visit, I don't know where, okay, they might have said in trial, they didn't say here, so I don't know. But my question is, well, where did they meet him? Because him and Crystal allegedly left the house at 7:00 to head to the farm. So when did he stop by? They went to the bar after work. Then they go pick up a check. Like, when is this all happening? When is the time frame here? I need to know. So anyway, sorry. So he also told the jury that Joseph Lawson talked about, quote, burying her with a skid steer and they'd never find her, end quote. Okay. Charlie said he didn't tell police about this when he was interviewed in 2015, in 2020, because he was worried about getting in trouble. Oh, that's not the right one. I went too far. There we go. Because he was worried about getting in trouble for something I didn't do. None of this information came out, though, from Charlie until Charlie was arrested for absconding from probation and parole in 2023 and talked with Kentucky State Police. So Charlie didn't say nothing about this until literally 2 years ago when he got in trouble for breaking probation and parole. Okay. So under cross, Charlie acknowledged he was a frequent cocaine user in 2015 who later developed a pill addiction, and that he was probably high when the alleged conversation took place. Yeah. He did claim, however, to be clean since 2023, which, if so, good for you, Charlie. Good for you. But so, okay, let me finish his little section here. He also says, in regards to his arrest in 2023 and providing Kentucky State Police with information, he said when troopers arrested him, they started questioning him right away. about Crystal Rogers, Steve Lawson, and Brooks Howe. So here we have another witness who said he was with Joey, or they were at a bar, and then him and Joey go pick up a check, and then Brooks hands Joey the keys, and then Charlie drives back to the bar, and then somehow he's driving to Thompson Hill Road where Steve is, and he sees the car, and Joey says something about burying her body with the skid steer, never to see her. And then he just admitted he had a huge drug problem during that time. So that there's some credibility issues. And then by the time he does tell the story, he's in custody. And we all saw how the techniques the investigators used in some of the Stephen Lawsons that we watched on Thursday. So I put a big old question mark on Charlie, in my opinion. So, okay, cool. So, next up is Tim O'Daniel. My apologies, Tim. Tim O'Daniel. He is with the Louisville Metro Police Department's Digital Forensic Unit, and he presented AT&T data derived from Steve Lawson's cell phone the weekend of July 3rd, 2015. He testified that Steve received multiple calls between 11:06 p.m. and 11:56 p.m. on July 3rd, 2015. Between 11:50 p.m. and 11:53 p.m., there were a few outgoing calls. What they are, I don't know, because it'd be great if we could have, seen this in trial, but whatever. On July 4th, around midnight, there were multiple incoming and outgoing calls. After these calls, Steve's phone would ping near where Rogers' abandoned car was found on the Bluegrass Parkway. It also pinged off a cell phone tower near Thompson Hill Road around 5:30 a.m., and it pinged a tower back to Bardstown around 6:45 a.m. So there's some data there. Hello, Ivamos. Hope you're doing great. Happy to see you here. So Steve's phone is like all over the place during July 3rd and 6:45 a.m., July 4th, apparently. So defense attorney Zach Buckler questioned the accuracy of these tower pings, saying the device may not always ping closest to you, adding that the police, quote, aren't tracking people, you're tracking a device. A common, yes, that's absolutely true. Quote, you can't specifically pinpoint a location, just a general area, he said. So we all know that while they keep saying his car is close to the car, we've seen, those of us that have watched numerous trials, we all know that it's big circles. Okay. So I really need to see that with my own eyes to be like, are they really that close? What are we working with here? So next up, which, Tim seems like a reasonable, reliable, credible witness there. Though I must say I'm a little tainted after Karen, so what you can do. All right, so up next, witness number 9, Melissa Dover. She is a crime and intelligence analyst with the Elizabethtown Police Department. She made several reports about the calls, excuse me, and text messages to and from Steve Lawson's phone. Those include messages and calls to his son, Joseph Lawson, his ex-wife, Tammy Lawson, and Brooks Howe. Now, Judge Sims advised the jury to treat Joseph Lawson's messages as hearsay since he isn't on trial right now. Oh, excuse me. Oh my gosh. Note to self, don't drink White Claw when you're streaming. It just makes you burpy. All right. So Dover said that there were 10 calls between 11:06 p.m. on July 3rd, 2015 and 1:48 a.m. on July 4th, 2015. That's only 10 calls in like how many hours is that? 4 hours? There were a number of deleted calls, though, from Steve's phone between July 3rd and July 8th, 2015. Now that's weird. That's weird. Because not every call he made was deleted, just certain ones. So that's not great for you, Steve. That's not great at all. Nope, nope, nope. All right, so July 3rd, 2015. All right, Joseph called Tammy and Steve multiple times that night, but many of those calls went to voicemail. They didn't pick up at all. Joey calls at 11:06. Steve gets a missed call from Joey. 11:54. He gets another missed call from Joseph. Okay, did my best trying to put this together here. All right, so July 4th. All right, 12:01 a.m. Steve calls his son Joseph with the call lasting a few seconds. Then at 12:03 a.m., Joseph calls Steve back, and they spoke just under 3 minutes. At 12:07 a.m. is when the 13-second phone call with Brooks Houck, which Steve testified at the grand jury that this was to tell Brooks, quote, the job is done, meaning move the car, meaning that they got done moving the car. So at 1:08 a.m., Joseph calls Steve, and they speak for around 3 minutes and 45 seconds. At 1:48 a.m., Tammy Lawson called Steve, and they spoke for more than 8 minutes. Now, Dover testifies that several of those calls are gone. Then on July 4th at 7:17 p.m., Joseph texts Steve asking what he's doing. Steve says, same as you, sitting around having a bad day. I don't know why they included that. That means nothing to me. But what I do have a question about is all these other phone calls. All right. So he allegedly goes and picks Joseph up. Where does he then go and take him? Why are they then calling again like an hour later? And why is he calling Brooks instead of Joseph to tell him that the job is done? I'm a little confused by this whole timeline. Like when Joseph calls them at 11, is that when the car got a flat tire, or was he doing something else? Like, when are we in fact putting the car at the Bluegrass Parkway? I need to know these things. I don't know about you guys, but I do. So then that went too far, my little thing. So then on July 8th, 2015, Steve and Brooks, at some point in time, I didn't say when, talked for around 2 minutes. I don't know if that's like the, excuse me, if this was like when he was in that interview, because that's the same date as Brooks Houck's police interrogation where they talk on the phone. I don't know if it was 2 minutes or not, though. It is the White Claw. Just don't tell everyone how much I burp. God. All right. So she said that the phone call between Steve and Brooks on July 8th had been deleted from Steve's call history, adding that more than one of the deleted calls involved Brooks Houck. This would be great if we could watch this trial so we could see all of the calls instead of having to rely on all the different news sources. Because, well, how many were deleted? And especially for like this, I need a whole demonstration, because his lawyers already told him he's guilty of tampering with evidence in opening statement. Like the second charge, that's already been decided. They were already like, nope, guilty, don't even worry about it. Right? But the conspiracy charge, we need to prove that there was a lot of stuff going on in order for it to be a conspiracy. And I'm like, I need to see these things. How many deleted calls involve Brooks Houck? How often did him and Brooks Houck talk before and after this incident? I need to know. Now, Prosecutor Young also says that there were other calls on July 8th. Just that one call was deleted. Ooh, if it was between Steve and Brooks, I bet that was his interrogation call. All right. So then July 17th, at some point in time, don't know, there was text between Stephen and Joseph where Steve says, "We'll talk, but not over the phone. No text. A surprise is coming." And Joseph says, "Okay." Is that a little suspicious? Yes. But what does that mean? Does that mean that they were talking? This is what? July 17th. So 14 days after crystals went missing. I don't know. I don't know if this date is really working out for me. I need more to it. So prosecutor Shane Young had previously said that he believes Tammy, who has since passed away, had knowledge of Crystal Rogers' death and was involved in the plot to kill her. He believes she was there on the Bluegrass Parkway when the Lawsons were moving Rogers' car. Okay, so you're saying that Steve and Tammy then went together to pick up Joseph in the car, but I thought Steve was at the Thompson Hill Road getting drunk. Like, when did they all come together? Okay, I need to see this because it's not entirely making a lot of sense to me. Or I should say, it's not making enough sense for me personally. Maybe for some of y'all it is, but for me, it is not so much. Not so much. So next on the stand, the Commonwealth's 10th witness, it's Shannon Burba. All right, so Shannon is the grand jury coordinator for Hardin County. I have never seen anybody from the grand jury be called to testify in a trial before, so that's fun and interesting. So they were present during Steve's, I was going to put she, but then I remember man Shannon with the one in, so I didn't want to just assume because nowhere did they say. So anyway, so Shannon was present during Steve's 3 grand jury testimonies in May, June, and September of 2023. The prosecutor played audio recordings of each for the jury, saying that Steve's story about his brief late night call to Brooks' house changed. Hold on just a second. I have to yell at Luffy to go let the dogs out. Okay, thank you. All right, so May 2023 grand jury. Oh, I got a slide here.
Here, come on, baby.
Where's my mouse? There it is. Okay. So in the May 2023 grand jury, Steve denies any involvement at all. He's like, nope, not me. Didn't do anything. Steve also said the call was to let Brooks know that he had got done with work for the day at 12:07 a.m. It's a great time to update your boss. He admitted to ending up on the Bluegrass Parkway after his call with Brooks' house due to some alleged altercation that had occurred. Oh, I want to know what it was. So June 2023's grand jury, now Steve is saying that the phone call he made after midnight, the night Crystal Rogers disappeared, was to tell Brooks that Rogers' car had been moved and that the job is done. He told the grand jury he said to help, and that Brooks said, okay. Like, oh, okay, all right. But here's my other question before I keep going on. Okay, so according to the state, Joseph is moving Crystal's car for Brooks' house to get rid of the car. Where was he taking the car to? Because he clearly was headed somewhere, and then he got a flat tire, and nobody was following him because he had to call his dad for help, apparently. So, like, where was Joseph even heading with the car in the first place? And if you're just going to say, like, oh, you're going to tell Brooks in 13 seconds that the car is abandoned on the side of the highway, that, like, it seems like everyone in that area drives down. I don't know if Brooks would be very happy about that. That seems to be going against the plan. So where was he going with the car if he had the car? Again, the defense did say we would have more unanswered questions than answered questions, and they weren't wrong. So then, in September 2023 grand jury, Steve goes into more detail, saying he had a conversation at some point before Roger's disappearance with Brooks, during which Brooks said he wanted his wife gone and asked if he could move Roger's car, which he agreed to. So in September 2023, apparently, Steven said, yes, he asked me to move the car, and I agreed to do that. Quote, to me, that means he wanted her deceased. He told the grand jury, which I hope you guys find this hilarious because I think deceased is a weird word for a guy like him to say and to use. And even my spell check agrees because it has the blue line under deceased. And it's like, if you click on it, it's like, do you mean dead? It says consider changing to dead. Yeah, even my autocorrect is like, oh, that is a weird way to word that. So then Steve said that he told Brooks he was looking at the wrong person. Okay. Meaning he didn't want to be involved, though he apparently also agreed to move the car. I don't know. Steve recommended Charlie Girdley, who also testified earlier, as we heard, as to details of the conversation. And Steve also said that Charlie giggled at his potential involvement. Okay. He said that Joseph eventually drove the car down to the Bluegrass Parkway, where he was forced to abandon it with a flat tire. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know if you'd want Crystal's car being driven all over the freaking place when an alleged murder is happening. It seems kind of messy. But I mean, we watch trials of idiots all the time. So I'm not saying people can't be stupid because we literally watch them all the time. I'm just saying this doesn't seem very well thought out. And if it's not that well thought out, then why did it take them 10 freaking years? Just saying. And why is this the only evidence that we have that we're hearing in court? It's kind of weird. So he also said, he told the grand jury he came. Oh, sorry, I need to do my slide. He told the grand jury that he went and picked him up. Before they left, he reached into Roger's car and moved the driver's seat forward because Rogers was very short and removed a miniature Louisville Slugger bat his son carried around regularly, which they always bring up this bat, but this bat was left in the car, if I remember right. That's why it keeps coming up. But apparently Joseph carried around a miniature kid's bat all the time. He's a grown-ass man, in case you guys are wondering. Okay. He is well grown at this point, but that's just kind of weird. He also said how he saw Joseph holding around $300 to $400 of cash in his hand, which was unusual since they lived paycheck to paycheck and his son spent a lot of money on drugs. Excuse me. This one's weird. This is weird. He also admitted to having a code word with Brooks Houck, one that whenever he says it, they know to talk about rental properties. Why did none of these news articles repeat what the code word is? Because I need to know. What is the code word? So Steve said he did all of this for Brooks Houck because he promised me work. All right, so that's all stuff we just covered that Steve apparently said in these grand jury recordings. Which, okay. Now, they're at the end of the day here on day 2. Judge Sims says that the trial is ahead of schedule and things are moving more quickly than expected. Yeah, they are. They're moving very, very fast, actually. Like, ridiculously fast. The prosecution says they're going to call their final witnesses in the morning and are expected to wrap up by lunchtime. Then the defense will call their witnesses to the stand. This was only day 2, you guys. Day 2. Prosecution's like, nope, this is what we got. We're ready. Let's go. It's wild. Wild to me. Let's see. Okay. So day 3, May 29th, 2025. Detective Mike Schaefer is on the stand. He's a former FBI special agent who is now with the Kentucky Office of Attorney Generals. You guys will know him if you watched Nick House. You remember when he took that FBI lie detector test and failed it? And that guy was questioning him afterwards? That's this guy. That's this guy. Okay. So he also interviewed Steve Lawson in 2015 at the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. So at this time, the court plays a 20-minute clip of that interview. God, I want to see it. Before Detective Schaefer's testimony with the judge, jury, and witnesses wearing headphones to hear the audio. However, at this point, Steve Lawson removed his headphones just about 5 minutes into the recording. Much of the interview centered on 2 phone calls made in the hours and days after Rogers disappeared between Steve Lawson and Brooks House. Sorry, I sure do have a lot of copies of stuff. All right, so in the 2015 interview, all right, Detective Schaefer says Steve Lawson told him he never touched the car. And obviously that was an admission that he later changed. Detective Schaefer also highlighted the slew of calls and text messages Steve Lawson made that night after Rogers' disappearance. Notably, Schaefer said there is a 4-hour window on the morning of July 4th when Steve's on Thompson Hill Road. And in the 2015 interview, Steve Lawson said he did not recall being there. So apparently, I think what they're talking, because we saw that Tammy and him talk on the phone at 1:48 a.m. on the 4th. Then his phone pings at like 5:30 in the a.m. over by Thompson Hill Road. So that must be like the area that the time frame they're talking about, that nobody knows what happened. So also in that interview, Lawson was heard saying, "I didn't hurt that girl," referring to Rogers. Detective Schaefer then discussed cast reports and phone data that helped place Lawson in the area where Rogers' car was later abandoned along the Bluegrass Parkway. Detective Schaefer testified that cell phone records show Lawson was at the property on Thompson Hill Road for 4 hours overnight between July 3rd and July 4th, 2015. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's going to have to be the 4th because we already had all of the other calls that we just went over. So it had to have been the 4th that he's talking about. However, Lawson told investigators he was at home that night and had never given an account on what happened during those 4 hours. So apparently that one isn't going to work. Oh, that's fine. Okay, well, all right. So Detective Schaefer also discussed a 2015 interview he conducted with Brooks Houck's brother, Nick, who he said denied his involvement while conducting a polygraph test. Schaefer said he had information that led him to believe Nick Houck was involved, and added it wouldn't surprise him if Nick and Rosemary Houck were co-conspirators, as Detective John Snow, the lead investigator we heard from earlier, said on the stand the day before. The defense did object and argued that Prosecutor Young asked Detective Schaefer to speculate and not rely on evidence, and pleaded with the judge not to allow further questioning of this nature. I mean, fair objections. Now, at this point, all right, at this point, right, they're objecting. They're like, no, you're not going to bring up other possible people that aren't even charged in this, right? So tensions were high in the courtroom as the pair of lawyers approached the bench to have a sidebar with Judge Sims, right? So the judge was then seen making a separating motion with his hands. Then Prosecutor Young turned abruptly and a bailiff rushed to physically separate Wolf and Young at the bench. Yes, that's right. The lawyers are about to throw down in front of the judge. That's how intense this trial is for them, which is I need to see this trial for all the different reasons. But apparently they got into it. All right, some shenanigans happening. Okay, so then it's now cross for Detective Mike Schaefer. So defense attorney Darren Wolf criticized Detective Schaefer for not bringing his case file for reference. That's right, he didn't bring anything. And he said that his testimony would only be from memory of the case that he's no longer over. Now, sir, why would you not bring the case file, or anything for this when you can? That's kind of weird, right? Especially since it's an FBI case file and you were an FBI special agent. That's weird. Why? So in regards to Steve saying that he never touched the car in that interview, Wolf said it's important to note that's not new information and that they've already said he's guilty on the tampering with physical evidence charge. That's right. He's like, who gives a shit if he touched the car? We've already told the jury he's guilty. Okay, why are we even talking about this? So then Wolf argued investigators can't confirm Steve was at the property during that entire 4-hour period, only that his phone was there. It's fair and true. Wolf also questioned Schaefer about Brooks Houck's brother, Nick Houck, who Schaefer interviewed. He asked him, did he give you information about his involvement? Quote, he denied it, Detective Schaefer said, but added the FBI had evidence and information which led police to believe he's involved. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting, juicy tidbit there. So the FBI has shit and he's still not arrested? Okay. Weird. Okay. All right. So the prosecution calls its 12th and final witness. Yeah, that's it. This is in game for the prosecution here. Justin Hall. He's a Nelson County jailer. He was there to play 2 phone calls made by Steve from jail in January 2024. So the first calls to be played was on January 5th, 2024, between Steve Lawson and his mother, Barbara. Okay. And she asked him what happened to Crystal Rogers. So it goes like this. Mom, somebody has to know what happened to the girl's body. Lawson, I don't disagree with you. Mom, Brooks Houck didn't ask you to kill her? Lawson, he said, I want her gone. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know why you're talking to me. No more, no less, period. Then Lawson says, I dropped him, Joseph, off to get the car. Mom said, no, you said I gave Joey and Charlie the keys. Lawson says, I took him, dropped him off, and went back to the farm to start drinking again. Joey showed up out of the blue. Where are we at? Okay. So Mom says, here's my question. And Stephen says, yes, Mama. Mom says, why in the hell did you take him to get that fucking car? Lawson says, I honestly don't fucking know. How's that? Ooh, getting lippy with his mom. Mom says, but you knew 2 days later that she was missing. You should have told someone. And Lawson says, yeah, I should have said something right then. So his mother then repeatedly chastised him. Oh, sorry. I forgot to click over. Here we are. All right. So his mother repeatedly chastised him for not going to the police, to which he replied, you're right. You're right. The call also detailed an argument between Steve and his son Joseph when Joseph brought Roger's car to the bar. Joseph left, but called Stephen after he broke down. Quote, y'all talked about, y'all did this, y'all did that, said his mother on the call. He said, I want her gone. Lawson admitted during the calls that he never reported that statement to police. Steve's mother pressed him for more information, and Steve also insisted he doesn't know where Roger's body was taken. Quote, I will never say that because I don't, he said when asked directly by his mother. Lawson's mom then questioned him about how he was involved with moving Roger's car. Mama, I told you this story a while back, he said, to which she said he didn't. I'm pretty sure she'd have a good memory. You said it was Joey, but now you're in the middle of it, she said. I told you I dropped him off to get the car, Lawson explains. Joey said he broke down. I asked where. He said the Bluegrass Parkway going towards Elizabethtown. I went and picked him up. I did. His mom ended the conversation by saying, only you know what happened. So I just want to say it's very, okay, so now Steve is saying that he took Joey to go pick up Crystal Rogers' car. Then he went back to the bar, and then he went to that house, and that Joey showed up with the car at the house. But according to Charlie was the one who got the keys for Crystal's car and didn't he say, took him to a golf course? Or was that Steve? Crap, now I forget. Either way, very interesting. Very interesting. So January 9th, 2025, this is the second call. And apparently this is to an unknown person. All right. Some said men, some said woman. I don't know. Unknown person. I don't know how it's still unknown. But okay. So Steve again said he didn't know what happened to Roger's body and that he did not know anything about Charlie Girdley. The caller asked him about Crystal's body. And Lawson's like, I'm telling you, I don't know. The caller says it's premeditated murder. Lawson says there's no premeditation on my end. I don't care what anybody says. That's not how premeditation works, but okay. Caller says you could have saved that girl's life and you didn't. Lawson says I never set nobody up. And the caller says you could have saved her. You knew for 8 fucking years. You could have saved that girl's life and you didn't even bother. Oh. Now, I don't know if there was any cross because I don't think there really was. So I have no notes for cross. So Sherry Ballard cried in the courtroom throughout the duration of the phone calls and had to leave the courtroom before the Commonwealth rested. Someone in the crowd wearing a Team Crystal shirt had to turn it inside out to wipe tears. I thought they weren't supposed to be wearing shirts. So I don't know why that was reported that way, but okay. With that, the prosecution rested its case. That's right. In the middle of day 3, they are done. That is like the quickest freaking trial I've ever seen. So So after the prosecution rested, the defense motioned to acquit Steve Lawson on this conspiracy to commit murder charge. Again, totally normal thing to do. Defense attorney Darren Wolf said, based on the evidence presented by the prosecution, it's reasonable the jury can't come to a guilty verdict on the charge. Prosecutor Shane Young replied that conspiracy charge requires there to be an agreement, and there was an agreement, and there wasn't an agreement between Houck and Steve Lawson. And of course, Judge Sims denied the motion, which literally happens in every single trial. So, all right. So we get to the defense witnesses. So their first witness is Dr. Carl Reich. All right. He is a nationally renowned forensic DNA expert. He appeared through Zoom to testify from Chicago. He has a degree in chemistry and a PhD in molecular studies. Reich's most recent work has been in forensic DNA since the fall of 2022, and he has testified in 190 cases on forensic analysts. He's a big guy. He's like a professional expert witness. So Reich was hired to suggest how evidence should be tested and to examine results. So Detective John Snow, the lead investigator on the case, testified earlier that tape lifts of hair were collected and sent to Kentucky State Police for further analysis. But they opted not to go through with the testing because they said it would have destroyed the hair. Now, Reich was given past evidence reports and hairs, and he only saw images of the hairs. He did not see them in person. Reich was told the hairs were found in a car and said they were not tested through DNA profiling, which obtains genetic information to determine who they belong to. He said there are two types of profiles. One, to search DNA profiles, called CODIS, which is most common for law enforcement that many of us are familiar with. That's where a lot of people, like people that have gotten like felonies and stuff, that's where all their DNA and stuff is kept. And one to search for male DNA, female DNA, or to establish family lineages. So what is that? Mitochondrial DNA, I think. So Reich said CODIS has the strongest statistics, which allows for the comparison of a DNA sample from a person and testing it for evidence. He said the second way is to compare evidence to all DNA profiles in the national database. He said that not every sample is eligible for all DNA testing, so that is why CODIS is preferred by law enforcement. Reich says the first step of a DNA sample is to examine and analyze it. The less handling before testing is better, and to test as soon as possible because the quality gets worse over time. He clarified that CODIS does not solve the case, it just identifies the suspect. Also true. His expert opinion was that if the hairs were important to the case, they should have been tested before aging for nearly a decade. Quote, evidence doesn't improve with age. It gets worse over time. Yeah, it does. That it does. So then the cross examination happens from the Commonwealth, and they begin questioning Dr. Reich. Prosecutor Shane Young asked Reich how much he was getting paid to testify on Steve Lawson's behalf. And Dr. Reich said, my rate is $350. Okay, that's really pretty kind of cheap, actually, for an expert witness, by the way. And so then Young says, okay, we'll try to get you to that hour. What's sassy? So sassy. Like, oh, okay. Well, since you're here to get paid, we'll make sure you get paid for an hour. Oh my goodness, sir. It's so dramatic and sassy. Oh, so Dr. Reich said he only focused on forensic data and that the only items Dr. Reich was consulted on was the hair analysis. He said he did not look at pictures of Brooks, Nick, Stephen, or Joseph, so he would not know if the hairs found would belong to them. Young said investigators never tested the hair to extract a DNA profile because it wasn't similar in characteristics to the four suspects, in part because they were too long and didn't match any of the subject's hair. Only 3 men have been indicted in the case: Joseph, Steve, and Brooks. The fourth suspect, Young said, is Hauk's brother, Nick. The Commonwealth asked Reich if someone's hair was not in the car, but they said the hair was, would he argue with them? And Reich said that is not his job. Reich was asked if it is possible to be in a car and not leave a hair behind. And Reich said yes. Now, during redirect, the defense asked if the hairs could belong to someone other than the suspects. And Reich said yes. Reich said it's impossible to say if the hairs had any evidentiary value until they're tested. But the defense said the hairs could have been put in a national database. Quote, if they were important, they should have been tested, Reich said. So, didn't they say earlier? So these two hairs that they found in Crystal's car on the tape lift, like it can't be any of the dude's hairs, right? Because they all have very short hair, all four of them do. But didn't they say several times? Okay. Can you wait just a second, guys? I'm sorry. We're a memento. Okay, sorry. All right, so as I was saying, so they totally threw Tammy under the bus twice now. She's been brought up in this trial. They said that they believe she could have been there too, but yet they never wanted to test these hairs to see. They said that they believe she was on the parkway, but okay. All right, so that wraps up day 3 because the defense didn't have any other witnesses that can make it to court that day. So the judge adjourned early. So day 4, May 30th, 2025. Our next witness by the defense, they call Barbara Jane Coulter or Coultier. I've seen a lot of books, as I told you guys. I did my best. All right. So she is Steve Lawson's mother. All right. So Barbara testified that she has a good relationship with Steve. When asked about a phone call with Steve while he was in jail, she said it was a very heated phone call with lots of cursing during the phone call, and that, quote, I said, don't lie to me. Barbara said that if she confronted her son and suspected him of lying, he would get irritable and would attempt to change the subject when questioned. When asked about Elizabeth Chesser being afraid of Steve, she said, quote, I don't know what she was scared of. Barbara said Chesser still communicates with Joseph and still sends him money. Which is crazy, but okay. So the defense says, do you believe Steve Lawson had knowledge of what happened to Crystal Rogers? No, Barbara said. Then she says, quote, the more I heard about it and the more documentaries I watched, I just had no idea that my son could be involved. I didn't raise my son to be involved in anything like this. It blows me away. So during her cross-examination, Prosecutor Shane Young said to Barbara, you told me you thought Stephen Lawson knew more about what happened to Crystal Rogers. And she said, I did for a long time. Yes. And I guess that was all for her. I don't really know why they called her, to be honest. It didn't seem to help the defense, but hold on, let me. So, anyone want to take a guess who the next witness for the defense is? Any takers? Oh my goodness, it's Steve Lawson himself. So Steve Lawson decides he is gonna take the stand, sir. Oh my God, this is such a bad idea, Steve. What are you doing? What are you doing? All right. No bueno, Steve. But all right, we always love it when a defendant takes the stand. let's see how this works out for Steve. So the defense's last witness prompted gas in the courtroom as Steve took the stand. He said his relationship with his son Joseph is not good, but that he loves his son, but that he loves him. Quote, I always love my son. I don't always like him, but I always love him. Steve said he met Brooks' help through Joseph when Brooks needed Bobcat work done. Defense attorney Zach Buckler asked why he lied repeatedly during the investigation. Lawson said, I didn't want to man up and take the blame. He said he also was trying to protect his son, Joseph Lawson, but that he's never lied to protect Brooks' health. When talking with Brooks earlier, he told Steve he wanted his wife gone. Lawson said, you mean like deceased? Lawson said he wasn't the man for it and had a lot of people working for him, including a man named Charlie Girdley. Now, Girdley, remember, testified earlier as the details about that conversation, and that Girdley giggled at his potential involvement. Quote, oh, hold on, slide. Oh man, I missed like a whole bunch of slides. Oh, whatever. Quote, I said, you got the wrong guy. You've got some of the meanest people in the world working for you, he said he told Hauk. Then I went and told Charlie, and he laughed it off, same as I did. Lawson testified that neither man believed Brooks' house was serious. He also said that Brooks' house never came out and asked me to kill Crystal Rogers. He was then asked about what happened on July 3rd into July 4th, and this was from the best of his recollection. All right, so he said at some point, Hauk asked him and Joseph to move Crystal's car. He said that he and his son Joseph were drinking at a bar on the night of July 3rd, 2015. At a certain point, Steve said he lent his car keys to his son and another person, Charlie, so they could obtain drugs, and Joseph returned sometime later and told his father that they had to move Roger's car. Okay, so he's at a bar with Joey, Charlie, his three of them at a bar. All right, Steve gets his own car keys to Joseph, so Joseph and Charlie can go and buy drugs. All right, Charlie also said they stopped at Brooks and picked up a check and got the keys for Crystal's car, but they didn't take the car then for some reason. Also, I don't know what time of day it is because it has to be in the evening, but whatever. All right, so he does know that there's a car being moved, but he doesn't know why, apparently. All right, so from there, Steve drops Joseph off at a golf course to pick up Roger's car after Joseph told him he planned on moving it. What? Why is her car at a golf course? Wasn't she like, she had a property to show at 5? Then apparently she went home, right? She must have left her car there. Apparently one of her daughters saw her leave. So like, when did they pick up this car? Where did they pick it up? And how did nobody see them? But okay. So, but this is just Steve's account. So, okay. So Steve says we go to the golf course to pick up Roger's car. Steve insisted he was unaware of why his son wanted to move the car, though he said earlier, and again, though, I'm not putting words in this guy. This is what the news reported. He could have worded this differently. I just did my best putting it together. Okay. So he said like Brooks asked him about moving a car. So how would he not know why he had it? Anyway. So Steve then went back to a farm on Thompson Hill Road to drink. So he leaves the golf course, goes to the house on Thompson Hill Road to drink. Joseph then pulled up to that house with Crystal's car. Now, Steve said the property on Thompson Hill Road was known as a chop shop and that Joseph had a stealing problem, and he thought he would rip the car apart to sell the parts. So Joseph left. Then the Thompson farm also belonged to a family familiar to the Lawsons. Steve Lawson said he did not want that car anywhere near the farm because he didn't want the owners tied up with the situation. Okay. Of a car thing? Okay, that's interesting. So after that, Joseph calls Steve and said, I'm broke down, meaning the car was broken down on the Bluegrass Parkway. Steve drove to that location and his son told him, we got to get out of here, he testified. Did I pick him up from that car? Yes, sir, I did, Steve testified. But before driving away, Steve said he moved the driver's seat forward and retrieved his son's miniature Louisville Slugger bat that he carried with him everywhere. He moved the seat forward because he wanted it to appear as though Rogers was the last person to drive it because he was under the impression it was stolen at that point, he testified. I'll take the blame for that, he testified. I pushed the seat up. I'm man enough to admit that. I don't want you all to say he's trying to get out of something because I'm not. That's just the facts. Okay. Question by Buckler. Steve also denied that he had given Brooks Houck the means and opportunity to kill Rogers. I was just moving the vehicle, plain and simple, Steve said. So he keeps saying that, I was just moving a vehicle. But he wasn't moving a vehicle. He moved a seat. And so I'm very confused in all the times where he's like, yeah, we were moving the vehicle, moving it. All you did was move a seat. You didn't actually move the car, right? I don't know. We don't know. Where was I? Oh, so further questioning surrounding what Steve was doing in the early morning hours of July 4th, 2015, at the Thompson Hill Road farm in the 4-hour time frame that's allegedly unaccounted for. Steve testified that he was drinking at the farm, which wasn't uncommon and was something he did frequently. Now, defense attorney Buckler brought up that nothing of evidentiary value was recovered from Thompson Hill Farm, despite the Commonwealth's argument that Steve was there to clean up the crime. Remember, we listened to a ton of they basically dug up all of Nelson County and have found nothing. So Buckler asked Steve if he helped Brooks plan to kill Rogers. No, sir, Stephen said. Oh, there we go. Do you know where her body is? Buckler said. I have no clue, Steve said. Buckler asked Steve if he knows who killed Crystal Rogers. No, sir, I don't know if she's dead, Steve said. Buckler then asked Steve if he knew where Rogers' body was, and he said, I have no clue who killed her. So then we go to cross. This is prosecutor Jim Lazuski. Why it's not, Shane Young, I don't know. That's very weird, but okay. So prosecutor Jim Lazuski's up to bat. He asked Steve why he didn't inquire as to why Brooks wanted a Crystal Rogers vehicle moved. He said, I don't know. I didn't ask. I don't know why he wanted the car moved. I still don't know to this day. Okay. Steve said he never agreed to help aid Brooks in Rogers' disappearance and that he doesn't know that he did anything to her. When Lazowski asked if Brooks House told him why he wanted the car moved, Steve said no. Why? Was I supposed to? He just said to move the car. He didn't say why, Steve said. Man, do I want to see this guy on the stand? So prosecutor Lazowski told Steve that he testified in front of the grand jury that he helped move the car because there was a deal to get more work from Brooks, which is who he worked for. But Steve denied that, saying that was not a favor granted for taking part in a conspiracy, but rather a request for work made previously. Steve said Joseph Lawson told him to call Houck to let him know the job was done. So I did just that. Oh. Hold on. Am I? Oh, yeah, we're on the right one. Okay, sorry. I was like, why? So I need to work on that. In regards to moving the seat in Crystal's car. Oh, and also, okay, so what did he get out of it? Because they're trying to say, oh, you did this because you were going to get more work from Brooks. Did he get more work from Brooks? Did he continue working with him after the disappearance of Crystal? Was there any amount of money, anything at all here? But I guess not. They didn't bring it up at all, so I don't know. So in regards to moving the seat in Crystal's car, Lazowski said, you did this to create an illusion that this lady was the last one driving the car. Why would you want to create this illusion if he did not know the larger plot was to have it appear as if she had taken off on her own? He asked. Is a very damn good point, right? Very, very good point. So after helping move Roger's car, he said he went back to the property at Thompson Hill Road to continue the drinking. Now, phone records show that he went back and forth from there several times throughout the day. And Lazowski asserted that Steve spent the early morning hours of July 4th, 2015, at the farm known as Thompson Hill, helping to cover up a crime. Lazowski asked if Steve expected the jury to believe that it was simply a coincidence that Steve spent several hours on the property after Rogers disappeared and after picking up his son from Rogers' abandoned car. I don't know what crime would they be covering up, though, if they left the car on the road? I don't understand that, but okay. However, Steve claimed he spent several nights on the property drinking back then. I was a raging alcoholic. I was up there all the time. Lazowski really grilled Steve on the car and the phone calls he made to Brooks' house at 12:07 a.m. on July 4th, 2015. Lazowski, you're telling this jury you didn't ask Brooks why he wanted you to move the car or where to move it to? Nope. Why did you and Brooks lie? Why did you need to lie? Brooks said use the apartment as a reason for the call so it doesn't look like I did anything wrong. So you lied to protect yourself and Brooks? I lied to protect my son, but never, not for Brooks' house. Before the first recess, the defense objected that as tensions rose again between Lawson and the prosecutor during cross-examination. Lawson explained that he did not know why the car was moved and told Lazowski, "You're trying to say it happened a different way." Lawson was also asked outright, "Do you know that Crystal is dead? We know she's presumed dead. Do you know where her body is? Did Brooks ask you to kill her? Did you facilitate the murder of Crystal? When you dropped Joey off and picked him up, did that give Houck the opportunity to kill Crystal?" Now, Steve answered, "No, sir," for all of those questions. And the prosecution pressed on why he has lied to the police and if he did not participate in the murder. If you did not have an active role in this conspiracy to kill this young woman, why did you lie to the FBI? Lazowski asked. Y'all keep saying kill this lady. Is she dead? That's what I want to know. Is she dead? Oh, don't say Oh, you should not have said that, sir. You shouldn't. So when asked by Lazowski if he lied to the FBI to cover up his responsibility for Roger's disappearance and presumed death, Steve said, "It's not true, but you've got the right to your opinion." Just taking a line almost straight out of The Big Lebowski, but okay. Now, at this time, both the prosecution and defense have rested their case. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all you guys got. So I keep reading because you got some time. Those in the chat, or if you're watching later and the replay crew, leave in the chat or in the comments of whether or not you would vote guilty or not guilty. Specifically, do you believe Steve Lawson is guilty of conspiring to commit murder? They already said he's guilty for tampering with evidence. They're already going to find that. So let me know what you guys think while I continue on finishing up this case. So at this point, the judge has given jury instructions and closing arguments are set to begin. I tried to find the jury instructions. I even had Amos looking and we couldn't find them. I did find Joseph's and Brooks, but since it was a different trial, I don't know if they actually read the same because those are things they get to argue in trials. So I don't want to presume that Joseph's, even though the charges are the same, the instructions are the same. But anyway, so he instructs them. So following closing arguments, the jury will then be deliberating. All right, so closing arguments. All right, prepare yourselves for this. So the defense is going first in closing arguments. That's right. Usually it's prosecution, defense, and prosecution again. But the prosecution said, nah, we good. We'll close. You can go. All right, so the defense starts off first with defense attorney Darren Wolf, who said that while the evidence was clear that Steve Lawson tampered with evidence, the prosecution had not been able to prove that a conspiracy existed between Brooks Houck and Steve Lawson to murder Crystal Rogers, with Wolf arguing that there was no proof that a murder occurred. Well, this quote is not great. Quote, was the evidence clear beyond a reasonable doubt that Crystal Rogers was murdered? That's not what I heard. Where did we hear in the evidence that Steve Lawson aided Brooks Houck in the planning of a murder? You didn't hear that because that's not what happened. Lawson's attorneys argued the evidence presented falls short of the burden of proof, adding that jurors didn't hear anything about Lawson agreeing to aid Brooks' house in planning a murder or that she was murdered. That Steve had no knowledge that Brooks Houck intended to kill her, and there was no evidence he agreed to take part. Wolf reminded jurors that Rogers' car was returned to her family and later examined by an investigator hired for an Oxygen Network docuseries about the case, which Wolf said suggested a lack of care taken by law enforcement to preserve evidence. The car ever being fully processed and without hairs retrieved from the car being tested. I mean, that's kind of a fair point. Quote, it is an absolute absurdity to think that the car should not have been maintained as evidence to this very day. Wolf argued that police should have ensured that 2 hairs collected from inside Rogers' vehicle underwent DNA analysis. Now, Detective John Snow testified that having them analyzed risked destroying evidence, but Wolf argued that the hair's value as evidence cannot be determined without testing. What are we doing here? This is crazy, Wolf said. Wolf's closing continued with him mentioning how in 2019, someone filed a tax return using Crystal Rogers' name and social security number. He questioned why there wasn't an investigation into that. Wolf concluded, how can we ask a jury to convict a man, Stephen Lawson, of a Class B felony before the state completes a proper and thorough investigation? Where is the evidence, proof Crystal was murdered. I don't know where she is, and I hope and pray she is alive somewhere and that this is all a big mistake. Wolf's suggestion that Rogers is still alive brought her family members in the courtroom to tears. Yes, sir, you probably should not have. I know you guys you didn't. Come on, buddy. We all know. We all know. Okay, we all know. He said, we still don't know what happened to Crystal Rogers. Wolf argued that the ongoing investigation should have been completed before bringing forth charges. Young called two of Brooks' own family members, his mother and brother, co-conspirators during the trial, and that neither of them have been charged in this case. Wolf questioned the integrity of the investigation into the disappearance of Rogers, asking the jury, why are we here when we know that this case is still being investigated, even though Rogers' disappearance happened nearly 10 years ago? Oh, that's the wrong one. They really played into this being a circumstantial evidence case, and that because it's still being investigated today, why would a man be charged, potentially convicted, and freedom taken away before an investigation is complete? We're here because the Commonwealth wants to bring closure to the Ballard family, Wolf said. This, to me, was a rush to the courthouse due to outside pressure to appease the community and the family. Added to, oops, there we go. The Commonwealth has decided enough time has lapsed that we now need to bring closure to the Ballard family. What closure can we possibly give the family? We're not going to get closure. We're not going to bring Crystal Rogers back, Wolf said. Further, Wolf asked the jury to consider Lawson's heartfelt and honest rendition of what occurred on July 3rd, 2015, which he gave from the witness stand, and not to act only in hopes of bringing the victim's family closure, but to rely on the evidence the Commonwealth presented. Wolf asked the jury not to let sympathy for Rogers' family influence the verdict, accusing the prosecution of attempting to deliver long-awaited answers without a full picture of the events. What closure are we going to give Rogers' family when we still don't know what happened to Crystal Rogers? Do not allow speculation and lack of answers to lead you to a conclusion that takes care of people's concerns for closure. I'm confident you will do the right thing, Wolf said. And if you have a reasonable doubt, hold to your passion, hold to your independent judgment. I wouldn't say that defense was a banger closing. It was not an Alan Jackson closing. I don't think that was great at all. So now it's the Commonwealth's turn for closing arguments, and prosecutor Jim Lazowski is doing the closing. He referred to Steve Lawson as a co-conspirator who had a fundamental role in this conspiracy to kill Crystal Rogers. Oh my goodness. Lazowski said as Brooks contemplated this murder, he needed an important partner to carry it out. This man, by his words, put himself in the middle of a conspiracy, an evil conspiracy. Lazowski indicated that the evidence is overwhelming. Now, that's I wouldn't say overwhelming, sir, but okay. He knew she was going to be killed, he said. That was the plan. Lazowski said Lawson had conversations Lazowski said Lawson had conversations where Houck told him he wanted his wife gone. In grand jury testimony, Lawson said he took that to mean deceased. Brooks' plan was to kill this woman, Lazowski said. He told jurors they need only to review what Lawson told the grand jury when he testified in 2023, and testimony from those around him at the time of Roger's disappearance. But we know from his words and evidence he was an essential part in Brooks Houck's plan to kill this young lady. As for motive, Lawson allegedly revealed in grand jury testimony that Houck offered that he'd pay Lawson and reserve all the drywall work for his construction business for him in exchange for helping him, get rid of his old lady. So he was going to make a lot of money. That was going to be his 30 pieces of silver. That's why he did it, Wazowski told the jury. I mean, okay, but also, was there any money? I mean, the IRS agents did investigate these people. Nobody has any tax charges. Was there big income? Was there jobs promises? I need to know. He goes on to say, we don't have to prove a murder. Lawson knew the plan was to kill the young lady and took action to aid Brooks. He carried that. He could have stopped it any time. He lied to cover up his role in the conspiracy. Brooks' plan was to kill this young woman. He knew the plan was to kill this woman. Every step he took after that was to facilitate and promote the murder of Crystal Rogers. Why would he lie if it was just simple mistaken conduct? All the evidence for the motives and actions of Steve Lawson point in one single direction, and that is he participated intentionally and at the request of Brooks Houck in that evil undertaking. He saw at the end of this dark tunnel the opportunity to make a lot of money. In regards to the 2019 tax filing, the prosecution discounted the thought and said it was likely fraudulent. I do not like this wording here. I don't think we should be using likely. Why don't you guys know by now? But nonetheless. So the prosecutors have maintained that regardless of any additional suspects that emerge, Lawson's role in the crime remains. He was an essential partner in Brooks Houck's plans to kill this young lady. And with that, the case was handed to the jury. Ooh. Okay. So the verdict. So before the jury was sent back, hold on, I'm going to take that. Ooh, big me for a little while. So, hold on, let me line up that one so I don't mess that up in a few minutes. Okay. So before the jury was sent back to deliberate, 2 men and one woman was dismissed as alternates. So the jury sent back in the room. The alternates, they're allowed to leave, which I thought was interesting. So as they're leaving, one of the men who was an alternate spoke to the media after leaving the courtroom. Ooh, that usually never happens. All right, so this alternate juror decided to speak out, and this is what he had to say. He said he didn't know anything about Crystal Rogers' case, but his wife did. I knew her name, I've seen the billboard, but I didn't know about the case. I'm not big into true crime stuff. The man said whether they believed Lawson's story, quote, that wasn't really the question of the case. He admitted that he wasn't sure if Lawson had anything to do with the planning of Rogers' murder, but he was certain Lawson helped move her car. He said it's up to those still on the jury to decide whether Lawson was involved in a larger conspiracy. There were times when he thought maybe his mind was made up, but he wasn't certain. Once we were read the instructions, the way that the law reads kind of changes what we're trying to decide, he explains. So, no, I didn't have a clear opinion one way or the other. He said, well, he's interested to see what the jury ultimately decides in Lawson's case. He likely won't be paying attention to Brooks Houck's upcoming trial in late June. Sir, why? Come on. You have all these unanswered questions. You said so yourself. You don't want to. Come on. Get out of here, buddy. Okay. His wife's going to be watching it. I can tell you that. Well, not watching it, but, watching all the coverage that there could be about it. So so that was the end of his interview. So the jury deliberated for just under 2.5 hours over pizza provided by the state. That's right. They had a pizza party. Lawson stood awaiting to hear his fate and patted Wolf on the back. Where's my little thing here? In less than 2 hours, about 2 hours, the jury of 9 women and 3 men came back with guilty verdicts on both charges: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. The moment the verdict was read in court was emotional for both sides of the courtroom. Members of Roger's family could be seen doubled over in the first row, overcome with emotion. Sherry Ballard cried and hugged family members as the verdict was read, and Lawson did not react. Now, I know a lot of you in the chat were like, yeah, guilty, 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 and that's totally fine. I would not. I really want to see the trial because I need to see the data and all of that time. I need to see that, I think, for me to feel more. I probably would have been a no, to be quite honest with you all. I didn't, from what I read, and literally, you guys, that is all there is on the internet about that. That it's every single piece of information from everywhere. For me, I don't know if that really shows a conspiracy to me, but there's a lot of stuff we didn't see. We didn't get to see because it wasn't televised, right? So I don't want to look at my misspell Tackmer thing. So that's where I would have stood on that. I mean, obviously, yeah, tampering with physical evidence. But for the planning of the murder, see, I want to know, why was he charged with conspiracy? I mean, and they got a guilty verdict, so I guess they did a good job. Let's just say I would have went with accessory after the fact, as opposed to conspiracy. That I probably would have been yeah, let's do that one. That sounds pretty, great. But I don't know if that's really showed enough conspiracy wise for me. But again, we're left out of knowing the exact data and the whereabouts of the cell phones and all of that. And that's really the only important piece of this whole trial, because most of the testimony was not reliable, in my opinion. Those witnesses weren't great. So, and I have so many more questions. And Steve's a liar, right? So, I mean, is anything he's actually saying true? Was he coerced by the police? I do believe that the Commonwealth, you guys, we spent how many hours, 20 something hours, going through every single detail that ever happened regarding all of this. The FBI has been involved for 10 years. And this is what they brought to trial for this guy. Of all the evidence, of 400,000 pages of documents. And that's what the state put on? Ooh, that makes me feel, I don't know how I feel about that. That's interesting. But you know what? I'm not on the jury. It wasn't my decision. And the jury came back with guilty on both. And that's their decision. And we got to respect that. So now you may be thinking, oh, Llama, when are they just scheduling a sentencing date? Oh, no. They do things weird in Kentucky. Are you guys ready for this? Because I've never seen this before. So Kentucky does this interesting thing where the jury determines the sentencing. A sentencing recommendation. Okay. And I've only ever seen that done in 2 scenarios before in criminal trials. One is death penalty, because it's a jury that decides whether or not it'll be death penalty or not. And usually like an insanity defense trial, those are also two-parters in sentencing. So I was like, wait, what? The jury gets to decide for regular, like non-death penalty? Okay, all right, let's see what this is about. This is wild. And it's a recommendation, okay? Just to let you know, the judge still has to formally sentence him. So why this even is a thing, I don't understand, but it is. So they now move on to the sentencing phase. So the jury comes back. Each side presents a witness. Okay, so the first witness up for the Commonwealth is Tori Rogers, Crystal Rogers' daughter, who was 11 years old when her mom went missing. She's 21 now. And she takes the stand, and she was visibly shaking and crying. Oh, Tori girl, you are so brave. So brave. So Tori, through her tears, spoke about her mother, saying that she's the kind of person when she smiled, everyone else smiled. It's been really hard. She won't get to see me get married. She won't get to see me have kids. It's not gotten easier. It's so hard every day. Tori said that she was the best mom ever and that they had a close relationship. Oh, it's so sad. Mm. How long did you hold out hope you'll find her? Special Prosecutor Shane Young asked. I still think we will find her. Maybe not the way we want to, but we will find her, Tori said. Oh, oh, that girl, that woman, she's a woman now. Oh. Next, the defense calls Stephen Lawson's mom, again, Barbara, who testified earlier, to testify on his behalf. She said Steve will be 55 in September, and he loved growing up on a farm. She moved back to Bardstown after Crystal Rogers went missing and began hearing things and watching documentaries. I kept thinking there's no way people could do something like that and not have empathy. She also made a personal apology to the entire Ballard family, especially to Sherry. Sherry has had to dig, scratch, and pull to try to find answers. And if I was Crystal Rogers' mom, I'd do the same thing. I empathize with her, and she has my compassion. There's not a mother who wouldn't do what she's done. I look at Steve and I question him because I didn't raise my son to be involved in anything like that. Then she addressed the jury and said she had mixed emotions about her son's circumstances. She told the jury, I didn't raise my son to be involved with anything like this. Stephen was a good man, a hardworking man. He took care of his family. When I think of him being involved in this, it blows me away, she said. Know in your heart the decision you make is right for you, but you'll live with it for the rest of your life. And as a mother, you know your children, and I know somewhere things went wrong. But he was good. Everyone involved in this needs to come to justice. She did testify for a lighter sentence and asked the jury to have mercy. Still, she noted her son will have to deal with the consequences. There's two laws in this world we have to follow. That's the law of God and the law of the land. I know Steve has to face consequences. Steve was a good man who took care of his family. I know he's a good man and a good person. So after she gets done testifying, apparently the lawyers do each like closing argument for sentencing. Okay. So defense attorney Darren Wolf told the jurors before sentencing that we don't even know if there was a murder, take mercy and pity on him, and then asked the jury to sentence Steve Lawson to the minimum possible of 10 years. I don't think they should have went with that angle, but they got to do their jobs, okay? So then prosecutor Shane Young asked for the maximum sentence, which would have been 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder and 5 years for tampering with evidence. He said that Lawson was part of the plan to murder Rogers. Again, you're losing me on that one, but okay. He said, give him every freaking thing you can give him. Don't buy into sympathy because he did not give a fiddle about fiddle. Sorry. He did not give a fiddle about them. Do you think it was weighing on his conscience when they were out looking for their mom, their daughter? He took a knife and twisted it for nearly 10 years. He let this family sit in agony. He took those kids' mother from them. Then, talking to Steve Lawson, he said, you're not a man. You're someone who led on a family for 10 years. You let them suffer. Oh, those are some strong words. So according to the Kentucky state statutes, as I said, the tampering with evidence is a Class D felony. So I'm sorry, it's train time, everybody. Choo choo. Oh boy, that means something different today. Okay. Anyway. So the jury for tampering with physical evidence can choose anywhere between 1 to 5 years, no more than 5. Conspiracy to commit murder is a Class B felony, and they can decide between 10 to 20 years in prison. Oh, so the 25 was right. He was facing 25 max. My apologies. You know how we are with math. So that's what they had to decide on. And it took the jury less than an hour to deliberate the sentence and recommended 17 years for the conspiracy to commit murder charge and 5 years max for the tampering with physical evidence charge to run concurrently. That means at the same time. Okay. He is set to be officially sentenced on August 6th at 3 p.m. Now, I forget, they have these like different percentages. You have to earn so much time before you get out. I know the tampering with evidence one is lesser percentage of time, but the conspiracy to commit murder is 85% of the time. So whoever wants to do that math, you just let me know of what he's going to have to serve before he's eligible for parole. Now, we're almost wrapped up for that, but I do have some what happened after the trial catch up. But don't worry, we're like almost done, you guys. All right, so June 5th, which is, they found all this on May 30th. June 5th, they file a motion for a new trial. The defense attorneys did, Stephen Lawson did. So Lawson's attorneys cited several reasons for a new trial. First, the judge made a mistake by not allowing DNA testing on 2 hairs found in Crystal Rogers' car. The hairs did not belong to Steve Lawson because they were too long to belong to him or any of the co-defendants. And they were mentioned during the trial several times by the defense as possibly belonging to someone else involved. Now, Judge Sims had ruled before the trial that they weren't going to be tested, period, because he didn't want to wait months for results. They needed to get things underway awfully fast, which brings us to their next point, that they also noted the concern about the quick pace of the trial, as it only lasted 4 days, which is extremely unusual for a murder case. Yes, it is, especially a no body, no weapon, no crime scene. I mean, that is a short trial. And especially one that's as high profile and with 10 years worth of evidence. Again, 400,000 written documents in discovery. Oh my God. They said it appeared that there was an urgency to have the trial concluded by Friday so as to prevent the jury from having to return Monday, they said in the motion. Next, they said that the jury was out less than 3 hours before coming to a verdict, which the defense argues is too short of a time to thoughtfully deliberate the case. Quote, this length of time led to a jury who was obviously ready to go home and failed to deliberate the nuances of this case. There is no conceivable way this jury reviewed the evidence, considered the instructions, and thoughtfully deliberated this matter in the time it took them to reach a verdict. Next is that trial spectators violated an order not to wear any clothing showing support for either side. The motion said a plethora of people in the gallery were wearing pink, which was a symbol of the movement called Team Crystal, and that it was not a coincidence that many individuals were wearing pink, according to the motion. Now, in addition, the defense has argued repeatedly. They again claim that there was not enough time to prepare for the trial, given, the 400,000 pages of written documents and hundreds of hours of video. The defense said they barely scratched the surface of looking into all of the evidence, while the prosecution has been reviewing this case since 2023 and investigating it since 2015. Fair point, okay? Fair point, though, okay? So then the defense also argued that a witness was prejudicial and gave inflammatory testimony because she, it's Elizabeth Chesser in case you're wondering, spoke with Roger's mother, Sherry Ballard, in the bathroom while she was testifying on a break, and told her that she hoped her testimony would bring Ballard peace. Ugh. Don't like that. Don't like that. But would that change the jury's verdict? Probably not. Probably not. But I don't know if I don't know if any of this is enough for appeals. I think some of them might have some legs, but I don't know. But this is just what they were saying. So then their next argument is that the trial court failed to provide jury instructions which accurately reflect Kentucky law in relation to the charge of a conspiracy to commit murder, thereby leading to confusion by the jurors. I don't have these, as I said earlier, I wish I had the jury instructions, especially because of this part. I don't know. I don't know what it means. So Kentucky attorneys, according to a local lawyer that I saw on one of the news channels who was doing some commentary. So apparently Kentucky attorneys typically use Cooper's jury instructions, which are a model form of instructions for book attorneys to abide by. The judge apparently didn't really follow that here. And Lawson's attorneys, this is according to the local lawyer, Nick Mudd is his name. What a fun name that is. Nick Mudd, attorney at law, said anyway that the judge didn't really follow that here. Lawson's attorneys may have a hook there, potentially with the Court of Appeals, eventually with this case because of the jury instruction. Though it was all argued about, but you know how those can go, And then, of course, they wanted to complain about the text messages, which were deemed hearsay by the judge, but they weren't instructed. The jury was not instructed about that before deliberation. And then lastly, Lawson's team says their motion for a directed verdict should have been sustained as there was no evidence that he entered into an agreement with Houck to murder Rogers. And then defense attorney Wolf signed off stating that the entire proceedings were fundamentally unfair. I mean, I think they do have some good arguments. Is that enough? I don't know. And by the way, this is not an appeal. This is a motion to the judge from this case, Judge Charles Sims, being like, hey, we didn't like what you did. Please admit that this didn't go well so we can get a new trial. Like, it's going to be denied. It's going to be denied by the judge, but these will be things they take up on appeal. No, Nick Mudd is an attorney, by the way. So then the next day, June 6th, this is what I'm really interested in knowing more about. So in June 6th, in an unprecedented move, Judge Sims filed an order delaying the release of Steve Lawson's trial recording. Yeah, they did record this trial, you guys. They did. Yeah. Okay. And he's ordering the delay, or he's delaying the release until all of the cases are completed. Citing a concern that prospective jurors and trial witnesses would see the recording. And Sims says the order that if that happened, Sims says in the order that if that happened, potential jurors will form an opinion as to how the cases against Hauck and Joseph Lawson should be decided. But that's really no different than every single other freaking trial we watch ever. But okay, that's what you have court here for. He adds that trial witnesses are excluded from hearing other testimony for the purpose of eliciting the truth. Sims' order states that if the recordings were released before the next trial, witnesses who testified in Steve Lawson's trial and are set to testify in the next could be compromised in some manner. Okay, I mean, some of these witnesses have been kind of not so credible, so maybe. And then he goes on to say that the judge said, the court is cognizant of the public's right to inspect or copy court records and documents, but cited case law supporting his assertion that the court's inherent right to control access and the public's presumptive right of access is left to the sound discretion of the trial court. A discretion to be exercised in light of the relevant facts and circumstances of the particular case. And here's the best part, you guys. The order said, quote, upon completion of the co-defendant's trials, which was today, the Nelson County clerk shall, meaning will, be allowed to release copies of the defendant's trial proceeding to the news media. What? So we might actually get to see this trial after all. I don't know what this means. I don't know if the local news channels are going to request it and then stream it. I don't know if it's going to cost money to get these trials, but apparently they are all being recorded, and he's willing to let Steve's go. So I bet Brooks and the other one are going to be happening too. So even though I've covered these, I want to watch this trial. So if either one of these trials come out and I've already covered them, I want to watch it with my own eyes. And I plan on doing Couch Court with Llama about both of these trials because I need to see and hear with my own eyes. Because you know how at the beginning I told you all I had to use a ridiculous amount of sources to get all of the details I just read to you. The number of sources that I had to use was 46. 46 sources it took for me to tell you that entire trial. Now, the regular average person is not going to read every single article about all of it because I don't even know how. I probably had 150 total sources, and I took stuff from 46 of them to tell that story. So I can only imagine what has been left out. That's not a knock to anyone that was reporting this story. Bless them. I bet they had hand cramps. I know they tried their damnedest to televise all of this. But that's the thing, right? Is, you only read a couple of news articles and they don't really tell you that much. And that's crazy to me. That's really crazy. So if those trials are released, that is definitely what we're going to be doing. Now for what is Llama going to do next? Well, y'all, that's a good question. I don't know because why am I so yellow? Oh my goodness, now that I'm big. Nope, don't like that. No. Anyway, so I really honestly don't know for you guys what we're going to be doing next because all my plans seem to just be falling apart, whether I'm planning something for the show or my life with contractors and whatnot. So I don't think, most likely won't be doing any couch court this week, maybe on Friday, but I don't know. I am going to still try to put together the Brooks Health trial. It is going to take me a while. I mean, that was a 4-day trial, and that took me a lot of hours. I don't want to know how many hours it took me to write all of that and put it all together. But we'll have an announcement about what we're going to be doing, hopefully by the end of the week or weekend. But tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, Terry True Crime will be live with Midday Missing, where she covers missing persons cases from around the country that don't get a lot of attention. And so please check that show out, 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. They make these flyers that, at the very least, if you have social media and can share the flyers, that can do so much in helping bring somebody home. Then tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, for members only, Terry and I will be doing a members only. Oh, I apologize. 8 p.m. Eastern. I forgot I had to change the time on that. We'll be having fun. I don't know what we're doing, but whatever. We're just going to hang out and have a good time. And then Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here, another True Crime and Wine Time episode where we're talking about Larry Rudolph. He's a dentist who killed his wife on a safari. Well, actually, safari is not the right word. They're probably going to use the word safari, but it's not like that. We're going to have lots of rants though on that one. I promise it's going to be spicy. So thank you guys all for being here with me. I am so sorry you didn't get to be in chat with you guys, seeing all your comments, but I really appreciate you guys being here and being patient while I try to figure out a schedule or a trial or something. But let me know what your thoughts are about all of this. And I'm going to try to find what Juju Bean was talking about with live coverage from Bardstown and stuff with the verdicts that came in today for Brooks and Joseph Houck. So until next time, everybody, go forth and be amazing. All right, I'll see y'all later. Bye.